Hey everybody, it's JJ and we're back again for another ASUS PCDIY hardware stream. Thanks everybody. I was starting just a little bit later in the day. I had a few things to go ahead and get through, but excited to go ahead and jump into quite a bit. We've got a lot of things to jump around for this week's stream. So we're going to be talking actually about some really cool, exciting, brand new coming products, including our ROG peripheral lineup with some brand new mice like the new Aimpoint series mice. We got the new Strix Impact 3. We're going to be talking about the brand new ROG Swift 1440p 360Hz monitor. We of course also have some new Mini PC editions that we're going to be jumping into, some updates in terms of power supplies, which I know a lot of you have been asking us about, some updates on some of the chassis side, and probably a few other things just sprinkled all in there to be able to go ahead and jump over into this stream. So a lot of things to go ahead and jump into, guys, and let's see who we have joining us this week on the stream. Looks like we got Erica. Thanks so much for joining us. Fantastic, letting us know that the audio is doing good. Thank you so much. You've got, I wonder how would you actually say that? I'm liking the emblem. Is that ROG 301 or 30i? Either which way, happy to have you here, man. Phil Hollingus joining us here, man. Thanks so much. Fantastic to have you here on the stream. PCs, man, fantastic. Always great to have you here on the stream. H2O Computers, man. Hopefully we're going to be able to make it to the PCDIY Builder Spotlight, because I believe we're going to be featuring one of your builds in the PCDIY Builder Spotlight today. And Michael also joining us. So fantastic, man. Thanks so much for joining us here. All right, let's get ready to go ahead and jump into it. As always, guys, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, whatever it might be, feel free to go ahead and drop them in the chat. I'll do my best to go ahead and catch those as I can as we're going through, the general updates as we've got them. So let's first go ahead and talk about a little bit of a UEFI update. So we haven't actually talked about one of these recently, but of course we've had a lot of motherboard launches over the last few weeks, right? Including brand new platform launches for Intel, as well as brand new platform launches from AMD. So definitely, if you guys are adopting into brand new platforms, you're going to want to make sure to keep it tuned to the ASUS PCDIY group on a weekly basis, or check out this weekly stream to be able to find out about the latest and greatest UEFI updates as we release them. As generally, definitely within the first few months, you do see fairly kind of fast iteration at the releases of new UEFI updates. So let's get ready to go ahead and first jump into those. So let me go ahead and bring up I think one of the keyboards we can go ahead and use as a reference here. And we're also going to talk a little bit about some of the functionality that we've got. So give me 1 second here. All right. Let's go ahead and go that route. Okay, great. So in terms of our UEFI BIOS announcements, these are pretty much all going to be for AM5 based motherboards. So they're going to specifically be for the latest generation builders that are of course going to be taking advantage of Ryzen 7000 series CPUs, whether they're going to be on the X670E chipset, on the X670 based chipset, B series chipset. You'll start to see essentially this series of UEFI release coming out. So specifically, this is going to be a Newegg AGISA. So if those of you that are not familiar, maybe this is the first time you've been building on an AMD based platform, the big thing that you have when we talk about the AMD AGISA is going to be that essentially it is the base firmware that defines kind of the overall operating experience for how a lot of the CPU and a lot of the performance characteristics work in relation to AMD based platforms. And so we do actually have a link. I'll go ahead and drop it in the chat there. But if you guys are part of our ASUS PCDIY group, I do actually have a featured post. So you can see actually right here, it says new UEFI BIOS updates for ASUS and AMD Intel-based boards. This week, there was no Intel-based motherboards. So specifically, this was all for X670E, X670, B650E, and B650. And this was for the new AMD AGISA 1003 patch release. And really, the big benefit here was to be able to maximize a little bit of performance, improve interoperability and compatibility with 40 series based graphics cards. So if you're adopting into the latest generation of RTX based graphics cards, then you would want to have that on there. Which boards? You can actually see we've got a whole bunch of motherboards right here that are listed in terms of the list. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that in the chat for anybody that is interested. And I'll go ahead and also reference this on the site. So let me go ahead and just bring up a model. It won't really matter, right? We can go ahead and use this prime SKU as an option. So let me go ahead and do that. I'll bring up the product page and kind of go just through a little bit of the basics in case anybody is wondering about it. So go ahead and bring up a board right here. So if you guys wanted to do it, pretty much I brought up the model. This is the Prime X670 Pro Wi-Fi, right? You can go to the support tab. Once you head over to the support tab, that's going to, of course, bring up your page for all your information. And if you guys do have the My ASUS app, not Armory Crate, but you do have the My ASUS app installed on your system, it actually will be able to reference our backend kind of database to be able to let you know that you have a new UEFI BIOS available. So if you want to update it kind of from that method, then you can do that as opposed to kind of going through this process. So we can see right here, that latest release is version 0809, right? And we can see right there, it's got that AGISA patch 1003, right? And from there, you can go ahead and use either the Easy Flash utility, or you can use, of course, USB BIOS flashback, whichever option is a little bit more straightforward for you. Both will work pretty similarly. Now, there is going to be another kind of aspect that I do want to go ahead and talk about here when it comes to the UEFI parameters. So two of them are going to be actually in relation to, let's go ahead and talk about one, that something that we did release right around launch, and I did talk about this a little bit in terms of our X670 kind of performance tuning stream. So if you guys are interested, make sure to check out the X670 performance tuning stream where we dived into this a little bit. But we did implement a PBO enhancement option. So for AMD for this generation, we've got a lot of really kind of options. We have ASUS AIO technology, which allows for automatic enabling of dynamic OC switcher, and for PBO2 with curve optimization, along with a pre-populated curve table, which is really, really cool. We have our Core Flex technology, which is a really advanced level of to be able to go ahead and define some of the boosting characteristics, especially at lighter loads. We then also have this option here, which is PBO, but PBO that can also be dialed in with specific thermal targets. So you can actually see right here that you can go in that if you wanted to have a targeted kind of value in terms of a temperature, you can see that you can set it to level 1 at 90C, level 2 at 80C, and level 3 at 70C. So this will essentially conform to hit that actual thermal operating parameter, and it will reduce performance accordingly. It's not a huge loss in performance, especially depending on what you're coming from. If you're coming from a platform from 3, 4, 5 years ago, the performance uplift is so high that even if you were to drop it down to a lower thermal envelope, you'd still have a really big uplift in performance. But keep in mind that these thermal characteristics, some people that are kind of concerned about this, if you're gaming and you're doing general desktop use, this is not a factor that you should even be kind of concerned with. It's really only for users that are really running sustained multi-threaded workloads that will be seeing the highest temperature limits on their systems. For those users, if they don't feel that they want to run their system at that new normal 95C, which keep in mind is still well underneath the thermal junction temperature, which AMD has defined, then you can use this option that we have as far as the PBO enhancement. And to give you a little bit of an idea here in terms of some of the performance, I believe here I can show this to you. Yeah, so we can take a look at this table right here. So here's an example of kind of the performance that you would see a little bit of indifference. So we can see right here, here's the default, right? Default is 37,811. Right, and then we can see right here, it's actually a little bit of uplift in level 1. Then we have level 2, which still is quite high, still over 37,600, right? And then you can still even see at level 3, 36,500, right? So still very, very good performance, but if you want the flexibility to be able to go ahead and tune this a little bit more, this is just another option that we have available to you. Now, we've got, again, a lot of options in AM5 based motherboards. These are only just some of the ones. Again, we have ASUS AIO, we have Dynamic OC Switcher, we have Core Flex. Some of the motherboards also have an external clock generator. There's quite a number of kind of just performance-based options. So if you're interested in wondering, if you're interested in those, make sure to check out our performance overview live stream where we covered kind of all those ins and outs regarding what we're offering on AM5-based motherboards. All right. So that covers us, I think, there in that regard. Let me go ahead and quickly just see if we have any quick questions in there. Hey, Vitor, happy to have you here, man. Thanks so much for joining us on the stream, man. Very cool. Let me just see. Oh, fantastic, man. Love my ASUS. Yeah, it's a great just optional app. Again, it's also a really good application that I do recommend for all users to have installed, even if you don't almost ever use it, because it helps to actually have a quick link to our service and support team. So you can actually initiate a service and support based case directly through the My ASUS app. So it is a nice kind of streamlined option as I having to go to like a support website looking for an email or a contact phone number or anything along those lines. Thanks so much. Fantastic, man. Thank you for that nice feedback. Okay. All right. Oh, hey, fantastic, man. Riyadh, fantastic. Happy to have you here, man. So very cool. So that rounds us out in terms of, I think, of the UEFI updates that I wanted to go ahead and note on. And so again, if you guys are interested in terms of the updates, just take a look at the chat. I've gone ahead and dropped in all the motherboards, and you'll continue to see, of course, more updates coming out over time, right? As always, generally what I do recommend in terms of UEFI BIOS updates, if your system is stable and reliable, running without any issues, there's no reason to update the UEFI. Really, the main reason that I update the UEFI UEFI would be 3 reasons. 1, to improve interoperability and compatibility if you have a specific issue with a certain type of device. 2, sometimes for new feature functions that are introduced, such as this PBO enhancement option, something along those lines. Or 3, I would say would be kind of maybe improvements in terms of performance, right? And so performance generally doesn't usually go up significantly, but performance can be kind of constrained in different parameters, right? So this could maybe be performance in certain overclocking configurations or certain things along those lines. And then of course there's also bug resolution, right? If there happens to be a bug and maybe it gets patched. But again, if your system's running stable and reliable without any issues, I wouldn't advocate that you all of a sudden just update your UEFI for no reason. Okay. All right. CLK is asking, what's the difference between XMP 1 and 2? Yeah, that's a good question. I've talked about that before in some of our overclocking streams. So really the base difference is that XMP profile 2 is going to be your kind of standard XMP profile. So that means that the variables that are defined directly by the DRAM manufacturer for the frequency, the timings, the voltage, all those parameters are 100% pretty much those parameters. The interesting thing though is that in some situations we can actually run maybe a little bit more efficient or a little bit more specialized timings on top of that base value. And part of that is because maybe we know our motherboard topology design best, right? And so what we might find is that maybe the DRAM manufacturer might create the profile to be in adherence with kind of the broadest set of motherboards on the market, but that might mean including motherboards that maybe have a lower performing topology or a different topology or just overall kind of auto rules. And so XMP profile 1 is our ASUS optimized profile. It still leverages the XMP profile, but we'll make essentially a couple of enhancements and tuning parameters that may give a little bit better performance or also potentially improve interoperability and compatibility. So by default, I generally recommend profile 2 for most users. And then in some situations, if you want to maybe see if you can get a little bit more performance, or if you've run into an issue with XMP profile 2, then you can try XMP profile 1. Okay. All right. Very, very cool. All right, let's go ahead and keep moving things along here, guys. So we've got a lot of things to cover. So let's see. So UEFI BIOS announcement. I think let's go ahead and talk about, I guess, let's quickly do, I guess, our announcement for our upcoming event. So we'll get this kind of quickly out of the way in case anybody is interested in checking out our event here. So we do have our kind of now it's almost happening on a yearly basis. And, you know, of course, with the challenges of the pandemic, we had a little bit of kind of restrictions in the prior years when we did it, where we did it come more virtually. This year, we are relaunching the ASUS PCDIY event actually at our ASUS Experience Center, which is based in Northern California. So if you guys happen to be in the Northern California area, or maybe you're in California altogether and you're interested in actually joining us, we will actually be doing giveaways. We'll be doing a workshop. We're going to have some people actually coming out in terms of maybe some water cooling enthusiasts. We may have some potential influencers that are going to be joining us. We're going to have some definitely a wide range of cool builds. We'll have a lot of cool hardware on site. So a really cool, exciting, and fun way to be able to celebrate the PCDIY experience and the latest and greatest from ASUS. So if you're interested in checking it out, it is going to be on November 4th from 3 to 8 p.m. And if you guys are interested, I will drop the link in the chat. There's no cost for you to essentially attend this. You just actually have to be able to reserve your ticket and be able to actually come out. I think right now we're maxing out, I think, around maybe 250 attendees, and we're about a little over 100 attendees. So if you are interested in joining us, I'm going to go ahead and drop it there in the chat. All right. All right, so gone ahead and dropped that one in the chat there for you guys. All right, next up, let's go ahead and quickly actually just plug a little bit of a cool little build project that I did with a Newegg, and I'm going to go ahead and drop this video in there for if anybody's kind of interested. It's a cool little video here that we did recently, just doing a little bit of a build. So if you guys are interested in checking out a little bit of a kind of full kind of walkthrough in terms of kind of a PCDIY build experience, our friends over at Newegg, I went ahead and visited them for the launch of the Z790 platform. We went ahead and put together a full ROG is a 13th gen Z790 gaming system. So it's based off of the ROG Strix Z790-E 13900K. We've got some Patriot DDR5 memory, a Patriot Gen 4 M.2 base SSD, and ROG Strix 4090 in there. And then that's all inside of a Helios, also powered with the Thor power supply and the Ryujin 2. And we pretty much kind of walked through the entirety of the build experience. We even overclocked the system. Pretty impressive, of course, with their ASUS AIO technology, where you can now take advantage of overclocking the 13th gen CPU, where you can literally be seeing, depending on your thermal, of course, load and your application load, 6.1, 6.2 gigahertz. In this system right here, we did overclock it effectively up to 6.2 gigahertz, which is pretty impressive, right? And then along with that overclocked profile on the 4090, you are taking pretty much about the fastest kind of gaming system you could really have on the market. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, go ahead and hit that smash button, that like button, and check out the video. So I will drop that in the chat for you guys. Okay, all right, so that gets us covered on that side of the fence. All right, so I think next up, let's go ahead and maybe check out a couple of giveaways, because we haven't, I know it's been a little bit since I've actually had the opportunity to do actually a PC DIY stream. So sometimes when I get the chance here on the PC DIY stream, I do like to talk about giveaways that we do have going on. So let's go ahead and touch on a few of these. All right, so we've got, I think, let's go ahead and take a look first at the Ghost Runner, I think, yeah, giveaway. So this is our Ghost Runner giveaway right here, complete edition. There's 3 days left. It's only actually a little bit over 4,600 entries, so pretty good if you guys are interested in doing it, right? So embrace your inner cyberpunk with Ghost Runner and RG Peripherals, right? So how to enter, all you need to do for your chance to win is to retweet the giveaway announcement from ROG North America, and then take a look at additional ways to earn extra entries, right? And you can check those out right there. So what are some of the sweet prizes? We've got some pretty cool prizes right here. So 1 product giveaway and then 4 game codes. So in terms of the grand prize, you're going to get the full game, right? Ghost Runner. You're going to get an ROG Strix Flare 2 anime keyboard. That's pretty much almost our highest end keyboard. It's got hot swap switches, 8,000 hertz pulling, USB pass through, full per key RGB lighting. It's a really, really nice unit. It's got even internal sound dampening material to be able to go ahead and reduce pinging inside the body. I really love the Strix Flare 2 Animate. You then also get the ROG Delta S Animate headset. That's pretty much almost our flagship gaming headset that we have on the market as well. Gladius 3 mouse, also pretty much our flagship gaming mouse, and it's the wireless edition, which again is a tri-mode connection. That means it's wired, wireless, and Bluetooth. And the ROG Scabbard 2 mouse pad, which is actually more of a desk mat. It's not even a mouse pad, it's a full desk mat. And then you can see right there, you've got some additional, of course, game codes that'll be available. So if you guys are interested in that giveaway, make sure to go ahead and check it out. Let's go ahead and drop that link there in the chat. Hey Matthew, happy to have you here on the stream. Thanks so much for joining us, right? Fortnite is, I'm using Z790 on DDR4 as DDR. I'm not sure. DDR4 is definitely very stable. Wow, we actually worked with quite a number of media, right? A large amount of media actually have used our boards without any issues, including our PBA partners. If you check out some of my prior streams, including and also in that build that I did with Newegg, as well as actually prior streams, all of them were using DDR5 configurations. The memory code actually within Z790 is actually really kind of just an evolved memory code base that was readily developed on Alder Lake, so Z690. So actually, in most respects, the DDR5 based memory code experience is even better on Z790 than it is in Z690. And actually, I have a whole set of results that I've included in terms of our PCDIY group showing actually frequencies easily going from 6,000 to 66 to 7,000, 72, 74, 7,600 MT configurations. So you can actually have a great experience when it comes to DDR5 or even DDR4. DDR4 actually even has a better Gear 1 ratio on Z790 and 13 Gen series CPUs than it did have on the prior generation. Somebody's asking about the Loki. Yes, I will be talking about the Loki. I have a whole update on the PSUs, so we'll be talking about that in a little bit, okay? Somebody's asking, is the giveaway global? I'm pretty sure that giveaway for that one, you have to check in the terms and conditions, but I do believe, let me see if I can check the terms and conditions. I believe that one is going to be United States. Might include Canada, but I think it's US. Yeah, so that is going to be residents of the United States, and I think Canada. Double check the conditions. It's in the terms and the conditions. But yes, I think it's just US and Canada. All right. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our next giveaway right here. We've got another one that we want to go ahead and touch on. This one actually, I believe, is going to be restricted to just actually our friends in Canada, and it's not US based. So let me go ahead and check right here. Yes, I believe this one is actually going to be Canadian. So if you guys are interested in this one, make sure to go ahead and check this one out. Again, you can always just scroll down here to the bottom and go to terms and conditions. This one is actually going to be by Memory Express and of course ACAD, right? They've come together to be able to do a giveaway along with of course a streamer, and so we've got a full gaming system that's actually going to be powered here on tough gaming components. So this is going to be with a Core i5 11600K, a tough gaming LC240 AIO, and tough gaming 3070 base graphics cards. You've got 16 gigabytes worth of memory in there, an SN750 500 gigabyte SSD, and then another 1 terabyte SSD. Those are both M.2 based SSDs and Windows. So that's pretty much a full gaming system. That's actually a really nice gaming system, and it's all inside of that GT301. Nice compact system, which is cool. Looks cool. I really like the ID design on the GT series chassis. So again, for our friends up north, if you're interested, make sure to go ahead and get on that giveaway. So again, I will drop that one in the chat as well. Hey Ken K, finally, thanks man. Appreciate you joining us in terms of our ASUS PCDIY group, man. Very, very cool. Let me see this right here. I'm going to be building my new system very soon. My question was if you guys going to bring the 1200 watt of the Loki anytime soon. So I will be talking about the Loki in a little bit. So for those of you wondering about, the Loki is an SFXL based power supply. So it's a compact based power supply. So we'll be talking about that along with Thor 2 power supplies and also Strix Aura power supplies, and one more. Oh, the Tough Gaming ATX 3.0 power supply. So all the power supplies, I'll be talking about those in a little bit, but just give me a little bit there. I first want to get through these giveaways right here, okay? All right, all right, so last giveaway right here is going to be done with our friends over at AMD, and so this is the Red Team Halloween Pumpkin Hunt. All right, guys, so you essentially just have to go through and you have 24 hours to find the hidden pumpkins, right? You can find out the actual information right here, but you'll see that the actual prize is pretty cool. It can be a Tough Gaming LC240 ARGB. That's our all-in-one cooler, as well as the Tough Gaming Mid Tower, right? So those are two very cool products. So again, this is the actual cooler that you can win. It's compatible with Intel and AMD-based platforms. And then for the Tough Gaming GT501, it's one of my favorite chassis. It's a big, robust chassis. It's made out of steel, really nice tempered glass design. It's got really nice candles to be able to go ahead and carry. You can do custom water cooling in it. You can do air cooling in it. It's great airflow, very flexible, lots of room in here. You could easily fit a 4090 if you wanted to upgrade into a 4090. You've got a nice PSU shroud in there. You've got room for a pump and reservoir if you wanted to go in and go that route. Fantastic choice. And again, you have the opportunity to win these. So if you guys are interested in there, go ahead and get in on those giveaways. So again, let me go ahead and drop that one in the chat there as well. PG PCs is giving some little quality feedback right there. He says that the GT501 is a fantastic case for any build, very roomy for sure. Yeah, I think that's really one of the things that I love about it, is that it really doesn't restrict you in any way. It's also got a lot of room in the back, which is really nice, so you don't have to worry about kind of really having good cable management. You can easily pretty much just shove all the cables in there, and you've got more than enough room to go ahead and slide that back panel on there. But nice, roomy, easy to work with. It's a great chassis. The GT301, which is the chassis that is in that Canadian-based giveaway, that one's kind of the much smaller version. It's a compact chassis, still nice to work with, but definitely quite a bit more compact. Really good for users that are looking for a more basic setup, maybe like a tower heatsink or maybe a basic 240mm AIO. But you have to mount the AIO in the GT301 in the front. You can't mount it on the top. There's not enough clearance between the top of the chassis and then, let's say, the top of the VRM heatsinks that you might have on the motherboard. So you do have to keep that in mind. All right. All right, I think that takes care of all of our giveaways. So that wraps up that. All right, so next up, we do have a couple of, let me see, go ahead and, we do have some promos that I want to go ahead and touch on. So give me 1 second right here, guys. This is going to be for anybody that might be interested in maybe doing an AM5 based build. So we've gone ahead and teamed up with our friends over at Newegg as well as Micro Center. So there are some great promotions that are going on right now. So you can see right here everything from Tough Gaming to ROG Crosshair to ROG Strix based motherboards and our Prime Series motherboards, Micro ATX with the Gene, pretty much almost across the board, including also the ProArt. They all have bundled savings. So that means essentially that if you're going to be pairing a CPU and the motherboard together, you can actually get a pretty nice value add. You do want to take advantage of these pretty quick though. Some of these are going to be ending today in terms of actually their bundle savings. So they, in terms of the bundle, you can be saving over $100. I think on some of these it's like $110. Yeah, you can see right here, save up to $110. So you can see right here, sorry, if I go back right here, let me go ahead and, it's going to be loading up right there. But I think I also have the link right here. Yeah, for this is for Micro Center. Micro Center is actually even a little bit bigger. Micro Center has some bundles here with motherboard, memory, and the CPU. So you can see right here, it's $200 savings, $50 savings, $240 savings, $200, $240, $50 savings. So those are all spread out. So essentially between about $50 to all the way up to about, you can see almost $240 savings. So let me go ahead and drop that in the chat there for you if anybody's interested in checking those out. When can we expect ATX 3.0? As I already talked about earlier, I will be talking about that in a little bit. So just make sure to keep it tuned. We will have our first ATX 3.0 based power supply. We will be the Tough Gaming power supply. And as I noted, I will be talking about those in a little bit. All right. So let me go ahead and just get you the link here, guys, for the Newegg combo deals. Here we go. There we go. Yeah, and so again, this is pretty similar to what I talked about. So an example right here is if you take that Tough Gaming X670E and then you pair that with the 7700X, that's actually my go-to recommendation for the AM5 lineup is the 7700X. I love the actual just single CCD. I think it's outstanding for performance. Really, really solid part, I think, in terms of that. And you can see $100 savings when you pair that together and you get that with your ASUS board. So I think that's a really great price because especially considering the $100 off, it's almost like you can get your SSD for free or that's actually a pretty reasonable price point to add into your DDR5 memory. So it's a nice little savings that you can pick up there on the memory. Somebody's asking about the Maximus Extreme. That's probably a little bit away. We've already gone ahead and released the original channel distribution availability for the Extreme. So, you know, I can't tell you what it's going to be in terms of kind of other timeline when it applies to kind of channel distribution. They all have their own respective timelines when it comes to logistics, how long it takes for them to process it, list, and kind of post something. If they've already sold out in terms of initial inventory, reskewing generally on average, if they're pretty quick, Micro Center is pretty quick. Newegg is generally the fastest of all the e-tailers. It's generally about 2 weeks from kind of going out of inventory to coming back into inventory on kind of an average. So my expectation would probably be sometime in maybe the end of the first week of November to the second week of November, you should probably see online availability pop up again. Okay. All right. Okay, so that takes care of some cool combo deals that we got going on there. All right, very, very cool. All right, we'll also be going a little bit more into some very cool promotions that we're going to have, but I'll talk about those a little bit later. I'm not going to jump into them right now because I want to give some of the other updates, guys. If anybody can tell me, did I link in that Newegg video there in the chat? Oh, okay, I can actually see. I think I did. So if anybody can let me know, that would be appreciated. But we will go ahead and get ready to jump into some of the next items. So next thing I want to go ahead and jump into, and after this I will get into the power supplies. So everybody that's asking me about power supplies, just be patient. We'll get to them in a little bit. Last thing I want to go ahead and touch on right here is anybody that maybe has a Ryujin 2, if you guys interested, our content production team actually did a pretty cool little animation right here that if you want to rock a little bit of that Halloween spirit, you want to have a little custom GIF or animation, I'm going to go ahead and link you to the actual download where you can go ahead and drop this into your Ryujin 2. A cool little animation. So we occasionally just add these out and we release them into the community. So if it's something you want to go ahead and try out, then I'm going to go ahead and drop that link in the chat for you guys. All right, so give me 1 second and I will drop that link in there for you guys. Hey, Erica and Rick, thank you guys so much for letting me know that I did drop in that Newegg build video. So that is very cool. Okay, thanks guys. All right, so now let's go ahead and do a little bit of kind of some status and availability updates, right? So let's go ahead and talk about, let me go ahead and just give me a little updates. Product release updates, timeline. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and add that into the mix right there. And here we're going to be talking about the ROG Loki, the ROG Thor, 1600 watt and 1200 watt, the ATX 3.0 specification Tough Gaming, fully modular Gold Series PSUs. Those are going to be our new models. I'm also going to talk about the Ryu 3, which is our brand new AIO cooler. It's actually the one that I showed off in the Z790 overclocking stream, which is the one that's using the 8th gen Asetek based pump design, and then also the GT502 chassis. So we've got a lot of updates to kind of go over here. So give me 1 second and I will go ahead and cover all of these. Okay. So let's go ahead and first talk about the Loki. So give me 1 second. Let me just bring up, I think I've got links for most of these so I can at least show you what I'm talking about right here. Here we go. Okay. All right. So here we go. First up is going to be the Loki. This is our SFXL based power supply, so compact based power supply. It's going to be extremely quiet, which I think is one of the key advantages that we have compared to traditional XFX based power supplies, is that while they can be quite compact, they tend to be actually a little bit on the noisier side. Of course, it's fully modular. It's got ARGB lighting support. Very, very nice, of course, component topology. Of course, that higher end heatsink design that the ASUS ROG power supplies are known for. Fully modular in design, right, in terms of the cables, along with high quality cables. And then, of course, will also natively come with the 16-pin power cable inside, right? So it's a lot of great stuff. I'll link it there in the chat. We'll have multiple models actually going all the way up into a 1200 watt base model that will be released. But in terms of the timeline, there is right now a little bit of an expected push out in terms of the timeline. Right now, I'd probably say that the earliest that we're expecting it is at the very end of Q4, so probably going to be in December timeframe, rolling into early January timeframe. As we get into December, it's always a little bit more challenging because, of course, in the US, you do have a little bit of holiday season, and that can sometimes cause logistical kind of restrictions in terms of how things get skewed up online or even get processed through in terms of shipping and other aspects like along those lines. So again, in terms of the overall timeline that we have for the Loki, you're going to be looking at the end of Q4. So like I said, late December, moving into early January. Now, if you guys are, of course, part of the ASUS PCDIY group, as soon as if there's any change, if it comes in any newer, it comes in any sooner or anything along those lines, I will have a featured announcement post that I will have in the group letting you know, hey, it's coming in, what's the expected timeline, as well as the MSRP based information. Anybody that's asking me about the MSRP information right now, I'm not going to give you one because I can't give you one. Just make sure to keep it tuned either here to the weekly streams or go ahead and check out the ASUS PCDIY group for the featured announcement, where when I do have that information available, I will go ahead and let you know that. All right. So that's our first update there. So that is for the Loki. All right. Next up, we've got the ROG Thor 1600 watt. Okay, so that is going to be our next release. So we've gone ahead and already released the ROG Thor P2. So the P2 is the newer model. Some people have actually incorrectly thought this is just like a slight rebrand. There's actually an entirely new topology inside of the unit. Quite a number of the actual internal power components actually have much higher rated specifications, even though the wattage envelopes, if you take, for instance, like a Thor 1200 watt versus like a Thor, P1 1200 watt, there's actually going to be differences. But regardless, without kind of diving into the, I'll talk about more of that in the future when it's actually available, right? But the 1600 watt, we have an expectation that it will be available next month. In terms of the timeline, probably around maybe the middle of the month. I'll have a little bit more concrete information probably in next week's stream. And again, as soon as it's getting ready to release in terms of the channel, we'll be announcing again here on a PCDIY stream, as well as there'll be a featured announcement post in the ASUS PCDIY group, which is linked in the description. So if you guys want to join the group, make sure to check it out. Okay, and then the 1200 watt will be following the 1600 watt, and that will be a few weeks after. So that could mean that it rolls into the very end of November, rolling into the very beginning of December. So I would say very late November, early December for the 1200 watt. 1600 watt should be around the middle of next month. I don't have MSRP pricing yet for you guys, so again, I can't give you that information if you're going to ask. I can tell you though, if you are in North America, we will be offering a 16-pin adapter cable for Thor customers, so you just have to reach out to our service and support team. So while they don't natively come with the cable, there will be a cable that will be supplied that will allow you to go and have 16-pin support if you want to have that latest generation cable. So 1600 watt, 1200 watt, and the 1000 watt, which is currently available, all will support essentially that cable. Just have to contact our service and support team. Okay. All right, we're going to keep moving along. We've got more power supplies here to talk about, but let me just go ahead and see if we got any questions right there. Christian gives us a nice sniff. Oh, the Canadian master, right? What a monster. I definitely agree. Pretty crazy, right? So will there be a 1200 watt in the near future? As I noted, right, the Loki series probably is not going to be until the very end of December, going into early January. But yes, we in the Loki pipeline in terms of the power supplies, we will have up to a 1200 watt base model. Okay. Can you link the video for the Ryujin 3? There is no Ryujin 3. There's a Ryu 3, and I'm going to be talking about that in a little bit. Okay, so next model that we want to go ahead and touch on is going to be the Tough Gaming Gold power supplies. So that one, we don't have even the product page up for it, but I do have, let me see right here. I do have images for it, so let me go ahead and bring it up right here. 1 second here. Yep. So this is the Tough Gaming, and let me just double check here in my notes. Yes, okay. So this is the Tough Gaming ATX 3.0. So this is actually not even currently the Tough Gaming power supplies that we have, but this is the new series. So this new series will go actually all the way up to a 1200 watt base power supply, and these will be natively ATX 3.0 out of the box. So that means in the box they will actually come included with the 16-pin cable. They'll have advanced heatsink design, very nice over quality power topology, really great options. I think for a lot of users, these are going to be kind of the go-to recommendations within our kind of power supply lineup, because you're going to have 850 watt, you'll have 1000 watt, you'll have 1200 watts. So really good lineup in terms of this. But again, here there's probably a little bit of a push out right now. The earliest information that I can give you is probably going to be very early Q1. So we did have an expectation that actually have this to probably be targeting November timeframe, but as at this time, it's probably going to be actually now in January. So again, as we get closer to the end of the year, there's still more time, right? You know, this update may change. So as we get into maybe the very end of November, December, I might have a new update, which again will either be communicated here in the weekly PCDIY stream, or might come, of course, in a featured announcement post in the PCDIY group. I'm also going to be working on updating our product release calendar in the PCDIY group, which is a table that has all of kind of our announced products and their kind of expected release timeframes. So if you're interested in that, you can check out the product release calendar. But again, timeline for this one is now moving into Q1. Okay. All right. That is going to cover us there for the Tough Gaming ATX 3.0. And then now next is going to be the Ryu. Let's talk about the Ryu. All right. Right here, this is going to be next. It's going to be the Ryu. So the Ryu is going to be our next high performance based AIO solution. This is going to kind of be for those that like team round in terms of the actual pump head. So instead of going with like the Ryujin right here, which is a square pump head and a full screen, right? So that means with the custom screen, you can put GIFs, animations, images. It can link with AIDA64. It can link with Armory Crate and actually up to 4 stat values represented in the screen. The Ryu actually is a anime matrix display, like the same type of anime matrix that we have on the motherboards, which means it's like a pixel graphics type display. You can customize it with different types of text, GIFs, and animations. You can also have clock readout and some other kind of readout displays on there, including some hardware-based functionality like even frequency, but it's a little bit different than what you would have in terms of the screen. This, though, unit will actually offer, I think, a really cool kind of stylized design. Some of the cool things is also the cable is fully integrated in the pump housing, so I think it's easier. You don't have like a USB cable that you have to like attach. It's quite nice in terms of that design where it's just simplified and clean. You just run the USB cable to the motherboard and that's pretty much it. Then you run your fans to the motherboard and you're good to go. So that's a very simple installation design. This is using the brand new 8th gen Ace Tech based pump design. There's more actually internal liquid. There's larger diameter to the tubes. It's higher performing, and it also has a brand new pump. So the actual, the pump, right, is 8th gen, but also the cold plate. The cold plate is new. It's actually a larger square cold plate design. So overall, very, very cool design implementation that we have on this unit. Very high performance. Actually, it's probably the highest performing AIO that we'll have within the lineup, although the Ryujin is still the only one that has the integrated VRM assist fan for a little bit more kind of surrounded airflow. This model will come in both white and it will come in black. We'll have it in a 240 version and we'll have it in a 360 version. I can't give you all the specifics yet in terms of like the pricing yet, but in terms of availability, we expect the first Ryu to be available in December timeframe. Whether that might be kind of early or mid-December, I can't tell you. December is always a little bit tricky again because just end of the year logistics and kind of different things to account for in that regard. But again, make sure to keep it tuned here to the weekly stream, and also make sure to keep it tuned to the PCDIY group for more information when it comes to the Ryu 3 in terms of its availability. And again, we will offer the Ryu in white, and it will also be available in black. Okay, and it does come with those fans that are in there. These are essentially the new ROG static pressure optimized ARGB fans, so the same fans that you find on the ARGB edition of the Ryujin 2. Okay. Let's see, ZHPTM is, which one would you recommend, the Ryujin or the Ryu 360 for the 1300K? They're effectively the same. I've actually used both of them. In terms of testing, I originally have used the Ryujin 2 and I've used the Ryu 3. I would really say just it comes down to your preference. The Ryujin 2 gives you a little bit more options as far as that it also comes included with an ARGB fan controller. Plus, it also has, like I said, I think a little bit more customizable display. And you can also rotate, remember, the pump head on the Ryujin, where you can go vertical or you can go horizontal. So I think some people may like some of the edge, but you know, in our polling, it's been about 50-50. If you care most, I think, about performance, technically, like I said, the Ryu 3 will give you a little bit more thermal performance. So if you really care about max performance, I'd say go with the Ryu 3, but they're going to be pretty close. Even temperature difference, we'd only be talking about a few C difference between the two. So I don't think it really matters, okay? Looks like ASUS is no longer using any of the older style twist brackets. Yeah, we haven't used any of those twist brackets for a pretty long time, so I don't think, you know, I don't think an issue in that regard. Is the Ryu 3 coming with updated pump? I'm checking everything in long years. No information on the Ryujin 3. I can tell you we are working on a Ryujin 3, but there's no information at this time. Right now, you know, before the end of the year, you're only going to be looking at the Ryu 3 and then the Ryujin 2. No information in that regard, right? Stardust is saying, will there be an LCD version in the future? Maybe, but right now we're trying this out, and right now we have no plans to kind of go back to what the prior Ryu was, which the prior Ryu had a screen, right? So right now we're doing the anime matrix on the Ryu, and then the screen, which is on the Ryujin, okay? 420, no, we have no plans for 420 millimeter. Otaku saying, I want to do OC on my CPU, but I don't know anything about overclocking. Check out our overclocking live stream. I have 2 that have been up recently. They're right now on our stream, and it actually talks about overclocking. It talks about things you want to keep in mind, how to use some of our easy overclock functions. Or you can also make sure to join our ASUS PCDIY group, and definitely can give you guys some more insight in that regard, okay? I already covered this. Does the Thor P2 1600 have a native? No, it doesn't come with one, but there's a cable. There will be actually providing an adapter cable, so we'll go from your PCIe to that 16 pin, right? So that will be provided for any of the Thor series power supplies. If you want the native connection, the first power supply that we'll offer will be the Tough Gaming based power supply, and like I said, that's probably now not going to be until maybe early January. We will also offer a new ROG Strix Aura power supply, which I don't have any images or anything to show you on that one, and that probably similarly will be coming in early Q1, and that will also be an ATX 3.0 based power supply. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's keep going on. I got more updates, and then last one is going to be the GT50 Okay, so let me go ahead and get to that, guys, here. so the GT502, as you guys know, one of my favorite chassis. We've been working on this guy for a very long time. This is our split chamber chassis design. It's got some really cool design implementations on it, which differ actually from chassis like the O11. So it's not a kind of just correct, quote unquote, very ASUS version, though, 11. We have different layout design implementations on it, especially when you talk about the rear and some of the different functions in terms of how we can access the top, which also has a magnetic top panel, which removes. But the cool thing also, I think, is our ID design is a little bit more kind of pronounced in the front, which I favor, because one of the things I don't like about kind of normal split chamber chassis designs is they don't really have that strong of a front face ID. And it's still not as strong as something like a GT301 or 501 or even the Helios, which have very, very visual front end designs, which I think I favor because I like looking at the front of a chassis and having a design as opposed to just seeing kind of like hardware that I kind of can't really tell what it is when I'm looking through the front. I think split chamber designs look best when you're looking at them at the side profile. An example of that is right there. And it looks fantastic once you eventually get it all the way to the side. But when you're looking at it from the front, it kind of looks kind of interesting and cool. But you know, you don't necessarily really have that solid, I think, of an ID design. So we've tried to extend this lip out and give it a little bit more of a front design, right? But this is the GT502, and it is on track for a release next month. Now, that will be the black version. The white version is still TBD. I don't know if we're going to be coming out with it this year. It's a possibility. Again, we'll probably have more information when we get into next month and we get to the release for it. But the GT502 will be coming out next month. There will be two versions. There'll be the GT502 Plus Edition, and then there'll be the standard GT502. The Plus Edition will come with a fan controller and fans inside the chassis, and the non-plus will not come with the fan controller and no fan. So pretty much you put your fans that you want in your system, cost you a little bit less money. The functionality of the chassis will be identical. It just comes down to whether you want to populate your own fans and have the controller, whether you want to have the controller and have the fans be pre-populated, or if you want to add in your own fans and add in your own controller. And there you can see the Tough Gaming ARGB controller, right? Here, taking a look at the back, you can see how you've got flexibility to rear mount the radiator right there. You can also see how you can mount the radiator at the top, right? Then you can also have the radiator mounted there at the side. Tons of support in terms of all fans, 13 fans. You can go into the rear where you can also see you can mount fans. You've got additional storage. You got plenty of room there for, of course, all your cable routing attachments, right? A lot of flexibility. You can also see right here, you have attachment for storage that you can do right there. It does support vertical mounting for graphics cards, but you can easily support horizontal graphics cards. Team horizontal. I don't like vertical mounting. That's just my preference. But you can go ahead and mount either or. It's entirely up to you. And you can see right here, nice tool-free based design where we also have the integrated what we call retention mechanism so that the actual panel doesn't just drop. That's something that we've had for generations now on our chassis, right? Big open design, Type-C based connectivity, right? Up to 10 gigabits. And also the hallmark for the GT series, those nice straps that make it really easy to lift when we're talking about the chassis. And you can see just all split up. It's got lots of room to be able to take apart, work with it, very flexible. We're looking forward to really releasing this to the community. So next month. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and just see any other quick questions that we have on there. Aura PSU, yes, ROG Strix Aura. So this will be a follow-up to the current ROG Strix power supplies. Aura, I think, is telling you, though, it'll have RGB lighting in it. So it'll be kind of similar to the RGB lighting that we now are going to have in the Loki. So again, that'll be coming in the not too distant future. So keep tuned. I already gave the update on the Loki. Loki, you're not going to be seeing it until maybe the very end of this year, beginning of next year. Okay. No new Helios, but we will have a new, essentially high-end ROG chassis. So it'll be our next generation GX chassis. So it's not going to replace the Helios. It'll just be positioned above the Helios. And you can actually check that chassis out in ROG Citadel, which you can download via Steam. It's a very cool X-frame chassis. It's larger, it's more open. It's really kind of designed for higher end water-cooled type builds, but very, very cool. It'll be coming a little bit in the future, okay? JJ's build saying awesome case for the GT502. Very cool. Oh, it's Tough Gaming. Yep. Good looking case. Thank you so much, man. Hey, Drew, thanks for joining us here on the stream, right? HO Computers. I'm going to be doing some pre-builds in this chassis. It's a fun one, right? Yes. If somebody's asking, is GPU height clearance enough for the Strix Plus adapter? Yeah, actually, we've tested all of our chassis. So the GT502, the Helios, and the GT501 all can comfortably work with the adapter cable. So I know some people, like even the 011 hasn't had enough space sometimes for some people as far as like having a bend or different things along those lines. It's not a factor within the GT501, the Helios, or the GT502. All 120. No, you have support for 140 millimeter fans in there. You can take a look at the site. I'll drop the link there in the chat in a second, right? Stay tuned for information on distro plates. So we have already had partners produce distro plates for the Helios and even for the GT501. I can't speak to partners like, let's say, Bits Power or Fantex or other partners, but we do hope that this will be pretty popular, and of course we are going to be coordinating with block partners. So you may see a distro plate, but I can't confirm that right now. Mr. Weedbreed is asking about boost behavior. So boost behavior, it depends on what you're setting. I mean, we have a lot of different options that are available within our UEFI environment. If they take advantage, like maybe enabled ASUS AIOC, and they have our PBO2 curve optimization in effect, or they're taking advantage of things like CoreFlex, that can actually allow for much higher boost values, especially at lower workloads. So we have a lot of optimization to be frank, that just other competitors haven't spent the R&D effort to be able to implement. We also do feel that we've carefully tuned our VRM for very, very outstanding transient performance, which means that actually when the CPU is coming down to go so ramping up, it maximizes the overall boosting behavior. But without really knowing the parameters of what the users set, I can't tell you what the difference would be. All I can tell you is that we do have, I think, the richest set of tuning options available for AM5 compared to any motherboard manufacturer, right? Let me just see here. Any last questions right there? Tavar is saying, I'm upgrading Z790 over Z690. Is there any updates? It depends on what you're upgrading from, right? If you're upgrading from like tough gaming to like an ROG, board, of course you're going to get other features and functions that may be present, right? So without knowing more details, I can't really comment on that. I can tell you that just from a pure technical difference, the overall performance is pretty much going to be parity. It's going to be very close. Z790 does have a benefit though, especially when it comes to DRAM. The signal integrity performance is a little bit better, and I actually have a full post about this in our ASUS PCDIY group, which talks about the DRAM expectations on Z790 and 13th gen versus Z790 and 13th gen. So Z690 with 13th gen, you can't now realize actually between about 6,800 to 7,000 MT, but on 13th gen with Z790, it actually will even be higher, where you can comfortably see even a little bit more margin in terms of DRAM scaling. And I talked about this in our overclocking live stream. So in the overclocking live stream, actually, I think I even demoed up to like 7,600 MT. So that's probably one of the main differences. There's also technically a chipset differential in terms of the downstream PCI links, but again, that's covered in our full launch live stream. So I'd recommend checking that out if you're interested. Okay. All right. So before I go to the next thing, John Fam's asking, so what's the reason for not having a Z790 formula? The real thing is it just comes down to bandwidth, to be honest. It's very challenging when you talk about the number of SKUs. I know sometimes for some people they can find it kind of hard to understand this, but it takes a lot of people hours when we talk about having a product portfolio. So you actually have to have a product manager there and an R&D team resource and EE engineering support, a lot of resource, and it's a very, very big commitment on our part to kind of put that on our individuals to be able to have such big product stacks. And you can imagine that the close proximity of launching so many chipsets in the last few years, from B series chipsets to Z series chipsets to then the AM5 chipsets, transitions from DDR4 to DDR5, having DDR4 and DDR5 enabled solutions, all of these things, it's quite challenging. And so we really kind of just look overall at demand and adoption, and we try to fine tune kind of the SKU stack to be most sensibly aligned with where we see the highest demand. Now, whether or not we maybe in the future do a follow-up, possibly, but right now we have no plans to release a formula board. We were testing the waters even that generation where we had, I think, very good response to people liking that we went with an all-white formula, which we had never done before. We had always offered the formula in black. And now this generation, of course, we've done the Apex in white with a white PCB versus offering it in black like we've traditionally done. So sometimes it's also testing the waters and trying different things out and seeing what our community responds to. All right, let me go ahead and move this along here. Is there going to be a Z790 Glacial? No, we have no plans to do a Z790 Glacial. Okay. All right. So I think that gives all the updates that I wanted to do for kind of pending items that are going to be coming out. So now we're going to get ready to jump into new product introductions. So these are going to be new products that we will have coming out to the market. So let's get ready to jump into this. And again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to go ahead and keep dropping them in there. Poor Greet builds. Is the better RAM compatibility due to topology, or is it just memory controller? No. So I actually talked about this in the overclocking live stream and in the PCDIY DDR5 Insights post. It actually has to do that we did further optimization to the actual signal integrity routing on the motherboard itself. So there's inherently just superior fine tuning that we have. And so you can still see improved DDR5 scaling on Z690. So if you put 13th gen in Z690, or like before, you know, on 12th gen, most CPUs would generally reach about 6,000 to about maybe about 6,400 MT and one SPC, one DPC configurations, right? But if you got to like 66 and 6,800, you definitely saw a fall off, right? Where the majority of IMCs couldn't hold that, right, speed. That's easily blown out of the water. If you put 13th gen into Z690, you can see, you know, 66, 68, even 7,000. But in the same vein, there's actually better scaling on Z790 because of the improved signal integrity. So the motherboards themselves will actually allow for a little bit smoother actually scaling and a little bit of a higher DRAM divider range. So even if you took the same CPU, sometimes you would notice a little bit more of a cutoff. So an example is like a 7200 kit. If I run that on Z790, I could run that with very, very good confidence. And then maybe on Z690, maybe actually that 7200 might not run at 7200. I might have to drop it to like 7000, right? So again, this is on 4-DIMM enabled motherboards. 2-DIMM enabled motherboards inherently have a higher level of scaling than 4-DIMM enabled motherboards, but it's already impressive that again, a 4-DIMM board, you can actually see that level of scaling and presence, scaling in those boards. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and get ready to go to some of our next products here, guys, that I want to jump into. I'll take one more question. It's great. We've got lots of questions right here. What RAM speed do you recommend for a 13900K? And I think because I'm getting so many questions that I've answered here in our prior stream, I'm going to also link my DDR5 Insight post. And again, I really ask you guys, if you guys are not part of our group, please join our group, because in the group, I have covered this. So let me go ahead and just show you right here, in case anybody's wondering. This is actually the post that I have right here in the PCDIY group. It actually talks about all the scaling about DDR5 and kind of what you can expect for 13th gen and Z690, what I recommend, what you can see between like 2 by 32 gig kits, 2 by 16 kits, right? You know, what's 4DIMM look like, all those kind of variables. So it's all in there in terms if you're kind of interested. But what RAM speed do I recommend? So pretty much the reality was on 12th gen, we saw about 80% approximately of CPUs could comfortably do 6,000 MT. That's overclocked, of course, because the base was 4,800. Now, of course, with 13th gen, you moved up to 5,600, becoming the new standard, which already is quite a nice bump up. But 6,000 really, to me, is conservative. Now, 6,000 is still kind of a sweet spot, I think, in the market in terms of pricing. So I think that's a good option. If you do want to kind of hedge a little bit more, though, and offer some of the more room that's available to you, I don't know if you want to wait, or if you want to adopt into something like a 6,400, or wait probably until next month where you start to see a little bit more of some of the 7,000, 7,200 MT kits. In our testing right now, we have very, very high confidence that, at least again, similarly, that 7,000 MT is the new 6,000 MT. And so what that means essentially is 13 gen with Z790, most users, not all, because there still will always be a little bit of silicon variance, but a high number of the CPUs can comfortably be in that range of about 7,000 MT plus. And I mean plus fairly comfortably, where it's not going to be even uncommon to see even maybe 7,200 or even a little bit higher. It's the breaking point tends to be a little bit closer to about over 74. So But that all depends on how much you want to spend on your memory kit. So I still think 6,000 with tight timings, it's a great option. You can get some really good value right now, especially if you don't want to go RGB. G.Skill has some great kits of 6,000, I think like C30, right, for like $240 or even a little bit less than that. That is maybe, I think, like an outstanding sweet spot for a kit of memory. So that would probably be maybe my recommendation. Okay. All right. All right, so that covers us there. So let's go ahead and get into some of our other products that I want to go ahead and talk about here, guys. So yeah, give me 1 second here. The first one is this one, going to be right here. So this is the ASUS MA25. So this is the ASUS MA25, and so this is going to be something that maybe some of you are going to be like, what the heck is this? This is actually a MoCA adapter. So if you guys aren't familiar with MoCA, pretty much it's allowing you to leverage essentially coax-based cable, right, that you probably may have in your house, and using that as a mechanism to be able to actually essentially have high-speed networking within your home. So similar concept, it's kind of been pushed about for really, more than a decade, actually, for probably almost 15 plus years with with Powerwall-based technology, right? So trying to use the electrical cables in your house. The problem with that type of standard is there's a lot more variability. There's also some concerns in terms of how it relays into terms of different breakers. There's also even some variability in terms of kind of the quality of the cabling and the electrical kind of infrastructure that you have in your home. What we generally find is that the stability and the quality of that you have when you have coax-based cabling within your home can be significantly higher. And especially for North America and for the US, there's quite a number of locations that already have coax cabling spread throughout their home for like one room to another room to another room for like cable setups. And so here you can essentially now integrate one of these actually MoCA adapters and do 2.5 gigabit networking through this MoCA adapter. And so an example right here is that maybe you want to be able to go ahead and take your networking from one point to another. And instead of, you could do this through wireless, right? And we have, of course, ASUS AI Mesh. We have Zen Wi-Fi options, which can give you very broad, outstanding coverage. But the reality is that always with wireless, sometimes you might have to account for where do I want to position that router, right? Where do I want to position that secondary node? You still also maybe have interference-based variables that can introduce themselves. The great thing is with generally a hardline-based cable connection is that it doesn't matter whether it's at 10 feet, whether it's at 50 feet, or whether it's at 100 feet, the performance is the same regardless of where it is in distance. And that's not true for wireless. The wireless, the further that you get away from the primary access point or even from the primary mesh node, you're going to be bringing down the signal, which therefore brings down your throughput. Now, if you start with a lot of throughput, you can still have a lot of throughput when you get to that secondary node that you connect, but this is a really cool kind of option that you have available to you to where you can go ahead and integrate, let's say, the MoCA in one solution, one space, and then another space, and then another space, and have that 2.5 gigabit based networking protocol in that space, right? And so you can see right there, that's where the actual cable connects into. Then you have the actual 2.5G cable that actually runs out to there, and you're good to go. And of course, we have a wide range of routers, as well as we have even a switch that can support 2.5G based networking. So if this is something you're looking for, this is going to be a new product. It should be actually coming out very shortly. We're probably going to be having it available next month, probably around by the middle of November. And we will have this in a 1-pack and a 2-pack. I will have to check on the pricing for the 2-pack, but I can tell you the pricing for the 1-pack will be $80 for this MoCA adapter, okay? And it does actually come here, you can see, with actually different mounting solutions. So you can creatively kind of mount it right there to the wall, right? Going straight out from your actual coax receptacle, or you can go ahead and then mount it kind of to the wall, directly adhering it there, and then running your cables in a horizontal fashion, okay? So this is actually a pretty cool, again, option. Again, if you're looking to maybe step up and be able to have a higher level of networking performance, this is going to be a cool accessory. Okay. All right. So again, we were going to be coming out with that in a 1-pack and a 2-pack. The 1-pack is going to be $80. Okay. All right. So next up here is, give me a second, and we'll go to the next product. All right, the next one is going to be, hold on here. Where is it? If I can bring it, there it is. Okay. And this one is going to be one that I know I've been waiting for a long time. And this is probably going to be, for me, my next, I would love it to be my next kind of gaming monitor, right? This is going to be the ROG Swift 360 Hertz PG27AQN. So, of course, we announced this quite some time ago, almost all the way back really at CES. And really the big claim to fame with this monitor is that we are stepping into that next territory to go to ultra high refresh rate. We are already at very high refresh rate, right, with 1440p and 240 Hertz, but now we're going up to even higher levels. This is actually going to be the fastest LCD panel that we've ever released. It's quite impressive, right, where we've had to do a lot of really impressive actually technology aspects when it comes to the actual panel. One of the critical things is actually what's called a dual driver based display. Traditionally, when you talk about kind of pushing the pixels, right, and pushing the actual backlight pushing the pixels, you generally talk about what's called a single driver, and this actually can have a trailed effect to where the performance when you're driving on just one portion of the panel, it actually has a different level of performance from one side to another side. And when you have a dual driver design, we can actually drive the actual voltage equally across the panel in a more consistent fashion. And so this allows actually the overall consistency of response time on the panel to be far better. And this was critical to be able to achieve the ultra low response time that we wanted for this panel to be in alignment with that 360 Hertz, and really also offering the highest level of G-Sync performance validation too, because this panel also supports NVIDIA Reflex. So again, the claim to fame here is going to be 27 inches, 1440p. NVIDIA Reflex is going to be supported. It's an ultra fast IPS, so not just fast IPS. This is a new category, ultra fast IPS. Also supports esports dual mode, 1 millisecond gray to gray. And one of the things that some people will notice is that traditionally when you talk about response time, there is generally a response time which is referred to as a peak. But if you probably talk about the overall average in terms of the response time, the average is going to generally be higher than, of course, that peak. Now, already in the prior generation, some people, when they compared like the XT27 to the PG27, and they thought, oh, the XT27, it's better and it's just cheaper, just go with that. They didn't realize that one of the benefits inherently of the PG Swift was that it also had a tighter consistency in the panel performance when it came to response time. And this is also going to, again, be true for this generation, where, again, the consistency in the performance of the pixel response time is going to be outstanding. So yeah, this is going to pretty much have all those key awesome specs. And I think for me, 1440p is still really the sweet spot. It's great in terms of the overall target range for desktop productivity, for gaming. You get all those key elements, right, where you also have NVIDIA G-Sync that's going to be present in here. You have the NVIDIA Reflex, which of course we right now I think have I think we're tied for the most NVIDIA Reflex mice on the market. So if you want to be able to take advantage of being able to see your display latency when it comes to not only display latency, but mouse latency and system latency, you can see all that information in real time through the NVIDIA Reflex technology. This esports dual mode is pretty cool because you can actually toggle between two different actually kind of views or use case scenarios, which are going to be common, right? So you've got right here the 25-inch FHD, right? Or you got the 1440p. And so you can go ahead and toggle those, right? So you can actually see how that works, right? You got one that's going to be full and then another one that's going to be slightly cropped, right? But that allows you to kind of go optimize the field of view depending on your use case, right? There is also still going to be the esports mode, which is kind of like a special vibrancy mode and optimized NVIDIA Reflex mode for a lot of game titles that'll also be available to you there. And, you know, it goes into some more information regarding kind of the measured response from NVIDIA. If you want to actually find out about some of the cool stuff for the actual new IPS-based technology, we actually have that broken down, including the actual new type of liquid crystal, which actually made some changes actually to the material composition, which allows for actually faster switching. We also had to change the orientation of the pixels to actually allow for even faster switching, which is critical in terms of achieving the lowest response time that we've ever achieved for a monitor. And then again, I've also talked about that dual voltage driver technology too. So really, really cool stuff that's on here. And then you have the dedicated G-Sync module. Some people kind of ask, well, what's the point of the dedicated G-Sync module? Really, one of the big benefits that it has is going to be the performance of its variable overdrive. Is that having the dedicated G-Sync module, because it's an FPGA processor and it has memory, it's really, really good at helping to offer very good variable drive performance. And so that means that when you talk about games, you're not just gaming at 360 Hertz, right? A lot of times your gaming experience could be down like 60, 90, 120, 250, 310, right? Wherever it is in that range. And so you want to be able to match your overdrive to the refresh rate. And that's critical in terms of ensuring really good motion clarity. And really, it's almost unmatched. The NVIDIA G-Sync module is outstanding at being able to give you a really, really good variable overdrive performance. So, this is going to be a fantastic monitor, and I think for a lot of people, it's probably going to be the de facto really kind of gaming monitor for a lot of people. Of course, we're going to have some exciting stuff maybe coming up for CES, so make sure to keep it tuned for that, but I think for a lot of people, this is going to be pretty exciting. So what is the price? The price on this monitor is going to be coming in at $1,050, okay? So that is going to be the price point for this. So we will still continue to offer the ROG Swift 1440p version model. So that is not going to be going away. If you're still interested in that monitor, we will still offer that. So you can kind of still go, that one is still pretty much the best 1440p monitor right now before this one kind of comes in and replaces it. And that one is going to be, it should be, I think should be normal pricing on that one should be, I think, $799. I think, yeah, so it's coming in at about a little bit more than $300 more than that monitor. But essentially, if we compare the two, let me go ahead and kind of just compare the two, right? You've got this is going to be the 1440p 240 hertz version, fast IPS, and then this is going to be the new model, which will be 1440p 360 hertz, ultra fast IPS. All right, guys. So again, coming in, and this one should be available probably about the middle of next month in terms of availability. Let me check in terms of actually who we're going to have it through first. It should be first available at Newegg, Micro Center, Amazon, and our ASUS eStore. And that will probably be an initial allocation, right? That'll be a little bit more limited. And then we'll have broader availability probably as we move into the very end of November, going into December, where you'll see even a bigger rollout at, Amazon and other channel partners, okay? So again, that will be coming in at $1,050, okay? Let's see. AMD Ryzen Enthusiast Group says, this is honestly a really exciting time for panel tech. I would 100% agree. Very, very cool, right? 32 4K OLED. We already have a 32K. We already have a 32-inch 4K OLED monitor. Yeah, it's under our ProArt line. I've already talked about it too. 4K. Let me see right here. This is right here. We're one of the only manufacturers that has anything even in this form factor. So this is our ProArt. This is a fantastic monitor, right? So you actually have OLED-based technology right here. There's actually a little bit of a difference in terms of the OLED panel tech that's used here as opposed to what you traditionally see, which is WOLED, which is what we use in our ROG Swift monitors, which are going to be the 42 and 48-inch version. But if you want 32-inch, well, you got it right here. It's 31.5 4K, and it's super color accurate, and it's fantastic. It's while it's not under our gaming line, one of the really cool things, of course, with OLED is that you already have outstanding response time. There's extremely consistent response time, which is fantastic, and refresh rate, while value isn't necessarily as big of a factor, and to some degrees in terms of response time. But that being said, of course, there's a lot of things that we're still working on. So, but either which way, if that's something you're interested in, we do already also have that as an option, right? All right, so let me go ahead and go into our next item right here. So that is going to be the ROG Swift. All right, so next up here, let's go, and we have, let's see, this is going to be, this is going to be the Zen Wi-Fi. All right, so this is going to be the Zen Wi-Fi XT9. So this will be another mesh pack unit that we're going to have under our Zen Wi-Fi line. So main difference, again, for those who kind of wondering about our Zen Wi-Fi line is, of course, the ASUS router line that we have with things like our ROG Rapture or the AX88U or any of those models, the GT AX6000, those are all single routers, and they can be combined together with another router to make your own mesh network, which is actually my preferred recommendation. But for some users, from an aesthetic perspective as well as a simplicity perspective, they might want kind of a combo experience, which means that it already comes pre-packaged with the units to make a mesh network. Now, inherently, mesh networks do carry the disadvantage of that you are using one of the bands in the router to essentially make the connection to the other node, right? That's actually how they work together to be able to create a bigger wireless network. Now, ideally, if you could use a Ethernet cable to connect those two, then you could keep all of your bands available to you, which would give you the best performance. But maybe you don't have wireless, you don't have wired setup in your home, or you don't want to have a wired setup and you only want it to be wireless. Then one thing that is an advantage is the latest generation and better performing mesh solutions will generally be based off of a tri-band based design. So that means that when you're talking about one of these actual routers talking to another router, there's actually 3 bands that are available. That means one band is dedicated for them talking together, and that's called a backhaul. And then the 2 other bands will be made available to allow your devices to connect to them. And that's actually what this unit offers. This unit offers 3 bands that are available, but it does also support a wired backhaul. So it's up to you. You can go ahead and set it up either which way. This unit does also feature what's called Smart Connect technology, which means you can have one single SSID. You don't have to have the 2 bands like 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. Just have one band, and the router will figure out where to put your different devices to be able to give you a great experience. Coverage is very high end for this unit because this is a high performing unit, tri-band based model. And that is going to be, as you see, up to 5,700 square feet, right? And then if you only had one unit, you would be talking about over 2,800 square feet. So very, very flexible. And of course, you get the ASUS router app, which gives you tons of controls, tons of options. You can prioritize devices. You can set schedules. You can do gaming modes. You can do media optimization modes. There's lots of really great features and functions. And again, here's what I was talking about where the backhaul, right? You have a dedicated backhaul, and then you have your 2 other bands you connect to. But you can also use an Ethernet backhaul, which would give you all of your bands available. And this unit is also built kind of for the latest generation of internet service providers, where it does give you 2.5 gigabit WAN, which means if you're upgrading maybe your internet service provider, AT&T, Comcast, whoever it might be, they're now offering greater than 1 gigabit base ISP. That means that the router has a 2.5 gigabit WAN, which gives you that bigger pipeline to be able to afford that to your wireless devices to be able to get more performance. You have, of course, gigabit WAN that's on there for traditional LAN-based connections, and you also have a USB port for easily sharing storage across your wireless network. Right. And then we've got all our great stuff again in terms of like our integrated security with things like AI protection and a whole lot more. So again, if you guys are interested in that, we have a great video here on the channel, which you can watch, that actually talks about upgrading to like 2.5 gigabit networking and Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6E and things along those lines. So that is the Zen Wi-Fi XT9. All right. Let me go ahead and just see. So mesh user 2.5, yeah, MA 2.5 is anything. You nailed it. You see, you are thinking it exactly the way that we've talked about it. So that's actually a perfect strategy, right? So if you had coax cable in your house, right, that's already going from one room to another room, use one of those and then just use that as your Ethernet backhaul and then connect those 2 units together, and you could have then a great experience because you would be maintaining 2.5 gigabit backhaul connection, which is super, super high end, right? And then be able to have a really big wireless pipeline available across those other 3 bands. So that's exactly what kind of the best case scenario would be, right? Let me just go ahead and see. Okay, it doesn't look like anything there. Hey, Rudy Model, if you're interested in help on kind of building your PC, feel free to join our ASUS PCDIY group. It's a fantastic community that we have, almost 40,000 members. You can go ahead and ask your question in there. We can give you a lot of people that can give you some starter recommendations on maybe a build configuration. Or if you, again, want to just tag me in the group, you can tag me. And I'm more than willing to create like a little bit of a framework at kind of a general system that might work for you. Just make sure to keep in mind your budget and where you're located, because of course your budget's going to be most important to define kind of the components that you might have for your system, and then also where you're located, because some components are available in some places and they have different prices in different places, right? So that's important, right? All right. So that is the XT9. All right. And we talked about the RG Swift. All right. So now let's talk about some new mice. All right, guys, let's talk about some new mice. All right, so first up is going to be the upcoming ROG Strix Impact 3. So this is going to be an update to the ROG Strix Impact 2. It was one of my favorite mice that we had on our lineup. It was very lightweight already, nice and compact. It was actually a semi-ambidextrous based mouse because it didn't have, of course, buttons on both the left and the right hand side, which is why you would call it semi-ambidextrous as opposed to fully ambidextrous, right? Like we used to have the Evolve. The Evolve was a truly ambidextrous mouse because it had both buttons on the right and the left hand side, right? But you'll see a nice drop down to where it's now going to be 59 grams. This is an RGB based mouse, right? So you have lighting, of course, in the scroll wheel and at the actual base with the ROG Eye. It has a nice upgraded 12,000 optical sensor. So this is going to be a big upgrade from the, I think current one is a 6,000 optical sensor. Near zero click latency. And that means because we have what's called our optimized actually spacing between the actuation mechanism on the actual switch and then the actual top of the button. So there's actually, normally in a mouse, you actually have a little bit of a space between that, and that can actually cause a little bit of actually actuation issues and it can increase latency, but we actually have a design where we make more direct contact with the top of that actual switch for more consistent actuation. You also critically get the ability to change out the mouse switches because these are our hot swap socket design, right? So essentially it's our push fit socket design. They will also come with our new premium ROG micro switches. These used to only come in the high-end ROG mice like the Gladius and the Keris and the Chakram X. Those are going to be rated for 70 million clicks. They're nice and crisp, very fast. They sound great, and they have a gold-plated junction for better reliability and durability. The new ROG paracord cable, which is very lightweight, very smooth, fantastic. It really has almost no drag to it. It's really lightweight. It's great. 100% PTFE feet and a very good design. I think one of the hallmarks of our mice compared to a lot of other competitors is we don't have creaking. We don't have weird kind of like flexing to our mice. The build quality on our mice is really, really high grade in terms of the overall fit, feel, and finish on there. So this is going to be great, again, for those of you that are looking for something a little bit more on the compact side, because this will be smaller than something like the Gladius or the Chakram or even the Pugio, right? But also still gives you a good amount of flexibility for, I think, grip types. Let's go ahead and check out a little bit of a quick video on it, guys, here. So let's go ahead and check out a little bit of this cool footage on the ROG Strix Impact 3. You can see, of course, you got multiple grip types that are easily supported. That nice paracord cable that I talked about, right? That 1% deviation is also kind of cool because not every manufacturer actually does binning on the sensor. We do binning on the sensor to ensure consistent tolerance in terms of the actual performance of the sensor. Okay, and of course, we've got ASUS Aura Sync support that's going to be present on this mouse as well, right? So that is going to be the ROG Strix Impact 3, and that will be coming soon. I don't have specifics for you in terms of the actual timeline, but you'll have a little bit more information in the not too distant future, okay? So if you guys are interested in checking out some of that information on here, I will go ahead and drop that in the chat. All right, and here's that little gap design that I was talking about, where you can see here where I was talking about that we actually have a little bit what's called a pivoted button mechanism, where it's actually going to be more tight in terms of helping reduce that. And like I said, easy shell design, which is great for easily being able to access the inside and swap out those switches if you do want to go ahead and swap out the switches. And if you're wondering about switches and kind of different types of experience, what some switches will benefit you from, if you want to go to a heavier switch, you want to go to a lighter switch, even if you want to use a silent switch, I've talked about that in our push fit live stream, where I've actually talked about our push fit socket design. So that's going to be pretty cool. All right, so that is going to be that one right there. Let me go ahead and just see here before we go into the next product if we got any quick questions that kind of came up there. Is it full ARGB? Yes, that is an ARGB that is going to be on there. The Gladius 3 is unreal, super smooth. I would agree. The tracking on that one, also the Gladius 3 and the Keris, this mouse has it too, as it uses our new what are called Omni feet. So they're really, really smooth, very high grade skates that people call them. Those are the skates that are on there. They're very, very nice for tracking performance and consistency. Andy K is asking, what's the Linux driver support for ASUS mouse and keyboards? None, because we don't validate Linux as an actual operating system for anything. The only thing that we validate Linux for is going to be for server and workstation motherboards and mini PCs. For all of our products, they don't do any Linux validation. The one thing that I will tell you, though, is that a benefit that I do think that we offer is going to be that we have one hardware-based profiles. So that means that you can store the profiles directly on the mice, and that's stored in memory, and you can switch between those profiles without any software. And also for our keyboards have hardware level lighting control and function support on the firmware. So that means even if you don't load any software, you can still actually control the brightness. You can go to different lighting modes, and different functions like that can be controlled directly from the keyboard as opposed to having to use any type of software to do that. Okay. All right. So that is going to be the ROG Strix Impact 3. Next up, let's go ahead and take a look at the Falchion Ace. So the Falchion Ace is going to be coming up in the not too distant future here. I think probably going to have the Falchion Ace probably next month sometime. So this is going to be a new update here to a more compact based keyboard. So this is going to be pretty much the smallest keyboard that we offer along with the current Falchion. So this is the Falchion. You guys have seen it. I've been using it for a long time right here. It's a 65% keyboard. It's wired and wireless, so 2.4 and USB-C. It has an integrated touch bar, which is right there. It actually comes with also a protective cover, which is great for travel. It has full per RGB key lighting on there, multiple onboard memory profiles. So what did we do with the new Ace design? Well, we just kind of upgraded it, and this one is focused at wired-based connectivity. So 65%. This one will use our ROG NX based switches. So the ROG NX switches are going to be pre-binned and pre-lubed based switches. They have very, very tight tolerances. Something that people don't realize is that actually if you don't bin switches, from one switch to another, you can actually have gram force deviation that can be between 5 to 15 gram force deviation, which is actually fairly noticeable. It means sometimes ones have a little bit more slop, or sometimes ones are a little bit more tight. And we guarantee with ROG NX switches to maintain the gram force deviation between 5 across all the switches. That makes the feel of the switches much more consistent, especially if you're a touch typist. I think you can notice that. We also then have our new ROG switch stabilizer, which is more stable and smooth compared to the prior generation. All the keycaps are going to be double shot keycaps, so great for enhanced durability and reliability. You still get that touch bar, which is going to be on the side. You get dual USB-C, so USB-C on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side. So it's on both sides, so that's great for kind of cable routing setups, right? And you still also get that cover that comes with the unit to be able to go ahead and protect it. So, and that's great. We have a lot of people that for some reason they have like cats and they let their cats lay on their keyboards and stuff like that. So, I think that's one of the cool things on the cover. So right there, you can see that we removed the cover, guys. So you can see right there, that's the cover, and you can remove that, and it's kind of got a cool transparent display to it. You can see 65% is also really nice for ergonomics. Puts less strain right there on your actual arm. The touch bar can be mapped to different functions. You can use it for volume. You can tap it for different kind of macro commands or customization. There's the lubricated ROG NX switches, the enhanced ROG switch stabilizer. There's sound dampening foam, which reduces internal picking in the body. So if you want a little bit of a quieter experience, especially with the linear switches, that's a really nice touch right there. And so that is going to be the ROG Falchion Ace, and we will offer that in black and in white. Okay. And JSJ says, awesome keyboard. Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I think this keyboard's going to be pretty cool. So somebody's saying is, can the keyboard handle a lot of wear and tear? I would definitely say, especially when you talk about having the double shot keycaps, that really helps to reduce any type of wear on the keycaps, for any type of things like legend fade or grease or kind of shine that can happen to keycaps. If you really kind of want the most durable keyboard though, I would take a look at the ROG Strix RX keyboard, because that keyboard is even fully IP certified. It means literally you could spill water on it. It's fully sealed, so it's very, very difficult for anything to get into the inside of the keyboard to be able to potentially damage the PCB or to damage the switches. And the ROG RX switches are also going to be even superior in terms of keycap wobble and stability. So for me, if you really cared about the kind of the most durable, take a look at the ROG Strix RX, and we're going to be talking about an RX keyboard here in a little bit. Okay, so that is going to be the Falchion Ace. Now let's go ahead and talk about this guy right here. This is actually going to be another keyboard, and it's actually going to be a follow-up. We already have this version available right now, but this is going to be the new updated model with ROG RX blue switches. So this will be coming out at 170. We already currently have this model available, but in red switches and in brown switches. But if you're somebody that likes blue switches, then we'll have this model for you. So this right here, as you can see, is a TKL based keyboard. So just no numpad, a little bit bigger than the 65%, but still quite compact. This is a tri-mode based keyboard. So that means that it is USB-C, Bluetooth, and 2.4 gigahertz wireless. It uses our ROG RX optical switches, and the optical switches, along with the ROG RX switches, the big benefit is very fast actuation, very good keycap stability, so you don't get some of the keycap wobble that you get within a Cherry MX type stem, where it's a centrally mounted stem and there's a little bit more variance for the keycap to wobble. Onboard integrated memory profiles, onboard hardware level lighting control. The outer actually frame is also going to be durable aluminum that you have on there as well, and quick toggle keys, right, for all your function keys that are going to be on there, and a magnetic wrist rest, right? So that is going to be the ROG Strix Scope RX TKL Wireless Deluxe. The Deluxe means that it comes with the wrist rest, right? And again, this is tri-mode, so Bluetooth, 2.4 and USB-C is all going to be within this this keyboard. So let's go ahead and take a look right here at this one right here. And so again, if you're also somebody that's ever experienced any kind of shoulder pain with typing, I really strongly recommend consider moving over to a TKL based keyboard. It really puts a lot less stress here on the labrum, on the arm, helps to reduce overall kind of ergonomic strain that you're going to be putting right there. The tri-mode is great for being able to flexibly go between different types of devices. There's very good battery life on this. Internal sound dampening film, which is nice for a quieter experience too. It also helps to kind of muffle, reduce any type of internal body pinging that you have on there. And of course, full ASUS Aura RGB lighting sync support on that model. So we already offered this one, like I said, in other switches. This is just the new updated version, which will now be launching with blue switches, which for those people that like those loud switches, this will be the option for you, okay? Yeah, Andy K says the keyboard cover seems so obvious now, right? Yeah, when we did it on the Falchion, you know, like it was one of those things that a lot of people, it's like, wow, this makes a lot of sense. And we really find that the big benefit is that just when you put it on there, you don't allow kind of dust, debris, and things to kind of settle in there. And just it allows you to have, like I said, a much more kind of sensible design. And we are even evaluating it for some of our new other keyboards in the future, because we've had so many people that really like the design on the Falchion. Even though we kind of designed it originally also for portability, it's one of those things that we've had really good feedback on. Okay. All right. So lastly, let's go ahead and touch on just the last two mice that we've got right here, guys. And we're almost wrapped up with the new items that we've got here. All right. So we've got the ROG Keris Aimpoint, and then we also have the ROG Gladius Aimpoint. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the ROG Gladius 3 Aimpoint. Gladius is kind of like their tried and true. It's, you know, it was our very first ROG gaming mouse, and it's really kind of been our leader in terms of offering, I think, the best balance in terms of ergos, size to so many different types of users, and really offering kind of usually the latest and greatest specifications that we offer in terms of our mouse designs. So here, this is actually bringing the new sensor that we introduced in the ROG Chakram X, which is our new 36,000 DPI Aimpoint sensor. So extremely high performance. It's pretty much class leading, and then on top of that, it also has the very tight deviation tolerance, right, of 1% deviation tolerance. 1000 hertz polling, and very, very good IPS and acceleration based performance. This is going to be tri-mode, which means that it is going to fully support Bluetooth, USB-C, and 2.4 gigahertz. New for this generation is going to be the new ROG Speed Nova Wireless. So this is a brand new microcontroller and wireless chipset based design, so even lower latency and better RF handling performance than the prior generation. Still keeps the ROG push fit socket design, so you can swap out the switches. You can do optical switches or mechanical switches. It comes still with the ROG micro switches. It has the pivoted button mechanism, right? The same really nice proven ergonomic design, laser etching on the side profiling right there, 100% PTFE feet, programmable buttons, but also new for this generation is going to be the grip tape. So let's go ahead and take a look here at some of the cool elements for this guy. So you'll see it has very much that ROG Gladius design, right? That rear lighting that you're going to still have present on here. USB-C at the front, the quick toggle that allow you to go ahead and switch between Bluetooth, USB-C, and 2.4 gigahertz. It will also come with an actually extender, so if you want to be able to go ahead and reposition the actual RF adapter. Really, really smooth tracking performance from the Omni feet that are going to be included in there. You can see now on the inside, you still have the ability to remove the switches and customize them. We're the only manufacturer that offers that. Logitech, Razer, Corsair, SteelSeries. Doesn't matter who you look at, none of them give you that. And then we're also including the ROG grip tape, which is going to be a nice option for those of you that have sweaty hands and sometimes just need a little bit more tracking on your mouse, right? And you end up losing a little bit of grip. So that will come included inside the box. And you'll also see right there, guess what? We're going to be launching now for the first time the Gladius in white and in black. So you will have them in both options. So you can get the model that you're going to like. Get the white model or get the black model, but we're going to offer both of them. And one thing I will say compared to I think many other manufacturers is I think our UV coatings are superior than almost every other manufacturer out there. So some manufacturers which have more wear performance, we have very, very, very good wear performance on theirs from the UV coatings that we do use on our mice, right? Johns is asking here for the dimensions. Yeah, sure. Let me go ahead and show you the dimension information right here. But let me first finish going over right here. So this is the new Speed Nova technology. So you can see right here where we're talking about the measured latency. You can see extremely tight sub 1 millisecond based latency for this. So pretty much outstanding, right? Where you can really go wired or wireless. That was already the case with the prior where we already had very outstanding latency. But this new microcontroller that we have in there, this new chipset gives us outstanding RF tuning performance and very, very good low latency. It also has improved even the reliability of the connection, so even very good stability, especially with heavy RF based environments where we got a lot of things that can cause interference. And it also has improved the battery life, where you can see now up to 119 hours. So very, very good battery life. And I didn't talk about it, but the weight reduction. The Gladius was already a lightweight base mouse, but now we go down to 79 grams, so it's even lighter than the prior generation. So overall, really, really great option right here. Let's go ahead and go over to the dimensions. And I will bring that up for you. So it should be down here. So there you go, 123 millimeters by 68 millimeters by 44 millimeters. Pretty similar to our prior mouse. I consider this what I call is a solid medium to entry large base mouse. It's not going to be as large as something like here. This is the ROG Chakram X, which has a nice extended lip design and a little bit longer body, which if you're, I'd say over 6 foot, consider something like the ROG Chakram X, maybe the Pugio 2 or the Spatha. I'm 6'2" and I have pretty big hands. The Gladius 3 works pretty well for me, but I almost wish that we had like a Gladius XL would be, you know, my preference. But that all comes down very much to different people's grip type and kind of their hand size, right? Okay. All right. And so next, let's go ahead and take a look here at the Keris. So the Keris Aimpoint, we're pretty much looking at the same kind of overall key features. We're just going to go to a little bit more compact. So again, if you even want something a little bit lighter weight and super premium, again, in terms of all the core features, then we've got 75 grams now on the Keris right here. Now keep in mind, the Keris Wired was already much lighter than this. The Keris Wired was like 62 grams. And then we have the M4 Air, which is 49 grams. So if you really want super, super lightweight, go for that. But the reality is a lot of people, I think they over talk about weight. Ergonomics, I think, are much more important than weight. But, you know, we have a wide range of options for whatever kind of works for you. Again, 36,000 DPI Aimpoint sensor with that, of course, tight tolerance, tri-mode connectivity, the Speed Nova wireless, the swappable switches. This mouse will still come with PBT buttons, which is different than the Gladius. That means the actual surface finish on here actually has a little bit of texture for some nice additional kind of grip, right? The RG paracord cable, the 100% PTFE feet, the programmable buttons, and this model also will come with the grip tape. And you'll also get this one in white. Also, you'll get it in black. So both models, we're going to give you that flexibility to go that route. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look here at the ROG Keris Aimpoint. Again, this one has that PBT nice finish that you can notice right there on those front buttons. Hardware DPI button right there. The Omni Feet design is the same thing for super smooth tracking. You're going to get the grip tape that's going to come inside the box. That button on the bottom allows you to toggle between the USB-C, the Bluetooth, and the 2.4 gigahertz. The upgraded battery life, the reduced weight that's also on here, the removable switches, comes with those ROG micro switches already included in the unit, right? So that is going to be the ROG Keris wireless Aimpoint. All right. Let me see. Yeah, I definitely agree here with AMD Ryzen Enthusiast Group's feedback. As long as the thing doesn't feel like a brick or slide around on its own, weight is a non-factor for me. I want it to feel right in my hand. Yeah, and so, you know, for me, ergos are really critical. You know, I think ergonomics is really where you want to find the right balance. And then weight, I think realistically, actually some people can even sometimes like a little bit heavier mouse. Like our Spatha is definitely over 100 grams, but actually I like it because sometimes I find if a mouse is too light, depending on kind of my muscle strength that I have, I might lift the mouse a little bit too much. So sometimes I like a certain amount of weight to allow me to kind of feel like I can have not necessarily the ease of being able to have so much liftoff distance, which is why LOD being able to be customized can sometimes be important, because if you tend to pull your mouse up a little bit, then you actually, that can sometimes be a little bit of an issue, right? But just kind of something to keep in work. This mouse works for MMOs. Of course you can use it for MMOs, but I think if you're interested in MMOs, let me show you here just the Spatha X. This is a mouse already that we already have available, along with the Chakra Mechs. These would be my recommendation for kind of, if you have like very, very high button command considerations you want to use, these would be two options. And these are already available and very high performing units. So the Spatha, you can see right here, it's got, you know, tons of buttons, right? 12 programmable buttons, already a 19,000, very high grade optical sensor, ROG micro switches on there. It has this really cool stand that comes with it for actually a magnetic charging base that's built in it. But this would be, I think, a great option if you want a high degree of flexibility and customization for MMO type mice, right? Or the ROG Chakram X, which also is a really great mouse for bigger hands, which actually, again, comes with tons of buttons, but it also comes with a 4-directional joystick, and the joystick can be actually mapped analog or digital, so it gives you a lot of control at how you can actually tailor that to different types of games, okay? Is the battery life for the stand or continuous usage? I'm not sure what you mean for the stand or continuous usage. Battery life is always a tricky thing because it depends on your RGB lighting, you know, what your pattern is and whether you go with static or whether you disable lighting, right? Generally, of course, the maximum battery life is always going to be with no RGB lighting, or if you go with a more simple kind of just single color profile. If you go with something like this, you can still get multi-day battery life, which is very good, but the more kind of patterning and cycle, especially the speed or even the brightness, some of our products like this keyboard, we default to a 50% brightness as opposed to 100%. It's already quite bright, but you know, battery life can be kind of tweaked around depending on different settings like that you have there. Yeah, the charging stand is cool for the Spatha X. You know, if you want to use it, it also just looks cool because it's magnetic. It kind of just docks there. It's pretty slick if you like that type of design. The Chakra, also this one I didn't note, is the Chakra does have Qi wireless charging. So this model, if you do want to be able to charge it, you can either get the batless we have, which has integrated actually Qi wireless charging, or if you have any wireless charging mat, you can actually charge it that way. But it does support faster charging, of course, just through USB-C. This is the ROG Chakram X. And this one comes with actually the same new Aimpoint sensor. It's the 36,000 Aimpoint sensor that is on that. So this is actually the first one that we released with this, and now the new Gladius and the Keris will be upgraded with that. So you can see lots of flexibility for buttons. So again, Chakram X or the Spatha X I think would be great models for you to consider if you're interested in kind of MMO. Let's see, Raffin, hopefully I'm saying that right, Raffin, is asking here, do you think you could connect the Ryu 3 to the X670 Gene without using a full speed fan port? Well, that's a good question. Yeah, Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, the Gene has, of course, a traditional CPU header, and you would then connect the USB 2 cable to a USB 2 header. So there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to connect it, I guess, if that makes sense. And the Ryu 3 already comes with a splitter cable, so it comes with a splitter cable to essentially allow you to go to a single fan header. So because you're generally going to run all three of those fans to the same channel because they're all going to be grouped to have the same control, you would just use the splitter cable, run it to the CPU header, and then you would run the USB 2 cable, which would control the pump, right, as well as control the screen to the USB 2 header on the motherboard, right? All right. Okay, guys. So let's go with the last product that I've got right here, which are just going to be update on the Mini PC side. We're finally going to be releasing this one, which is going to be the PN53. So the PN53 is going to be the latest generation of our AMD Mini PC units featuring the Ryzen 6000H series processor. So these are the latest processors, although now 7000 series is getting ready to come out right now, of course, on laptops, but 6000H is pretty much almost the latest and greatest. Features very, very good efficiency, very good performance, and of course, it's also going to be integrating for this model. You're going to have upgrades to be able to support finally PCI Express Gen 4 in the Mini PC, where in the past you didn't have PCI Express Gen 4. So you can support up to 4 displays. You're going to have, of course, a high number of USB ports, 7 USB ports, including 2 USB 4 ports on there and dual HDMI, two-way ASUS AI noise canceling, right, which is great for being able to put that like in an office environment for calls, for different kind of just chats with friends, whatever it might be. You have DisplayPort 1.4 with power delivery input. So what I mean by power delivery input, that means if you want to connect this to one of our monitors that has USB power out, you could actually power the Mini PC and to send the display signal through one single cable and connect it to the monitor. That means you don't have to have a secondary power cable to actually connect to the Mini PC. 2.5 gigabit LAN. You can support up to two two drives, including a PCI Gen 4, M.2 SSD, and a traditional SATA-based HDD or SSD. So essentially 3 drives can be supported on this unit. So 2 M.2 SSDs and then one 2.5-inch drive. Wi-Fi 6E with Bluetooth, right? And then our proven high level of reliability design that we have in terms of our Mini PCs, right? So this is also going to take advantage of the much better bandwidth and efficiency that DDR5 has compared to DDR4. I know a lot of people always think that DDR5, there's a bigger debate, but the reality is that the debate only comes into question when you talk about overclock configurations. DDR4 to DDR5, JEDEC to JEDEC value, it's never a contest. DDR5 is always going to offer better performance, and that's because the JEDEC value for DDR4 is going to be, let's say, 3200 at a specific cast timing, and then you're going to have DDR4, which would be at 4800 with the specific cast timing. And in that JEDEC to JEDEC value, it's always superior. It's only when you get into sometimes weird permutations of overclocking and performance tuning that you talk about that. And even then, you have to remember that also you lose bandwidth if you don't go with DDR5 and newer platforms per core, which is going to be key when you're talking about actually more cores, which are going to be prevalent on, of course, these latest generation platforms. But you can see some of the performance outliers on here. I really think the flexibility of having the USB power delivery input is a very cool level of flexibility and functionality. Again, you've got the USB-C right here, which supports display out, 2 USB Type-A ports, the combo jack, right, which also supports the ASUS AI noise canceling technology. You've got then 3 display outs that are going to be on this model. 3 displays that you're going to have there. You then also have this USB PD input, right, and that Type-C. Type-A, 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 and then 2.5 gigabits. This also does feature our new thermal design and new cooling design implementation, which gives you more cooling performance along with different fan profiles, where you can have actually 3 fan profiles. There's also right here and the new thermal design, which has that copper plate and that heat pipe and a self-cleaning fan design. So what does that mean? Essentially is that there's kind of a little channel there that helps to isolate and move dust, debris, and dander to its own portion of the actual internal chamber, and helps to kind of get exhausted out. So over time, it doesn't build up and kind of obstruct the internal portion of the fan. So if you're going to kind of tuck it away, it's a very kind of cool practical design. And the other cool part to this is going to be the performance. I mean, you can get this up until right here, you can see the 6600H, the 6900H, or the 6800H, right? And so if we go ahead and let's take a look at, let's say, the Ryzen 7, let's go ahead and bring up the values right here. So give me 1 second, just so you can kind of see The big difference here when you talk about kind of the mobile parts is this is a mobile processor, so the TDP is going to be a little bit more conservative. But that TDP doesn't mean you're going to sacrifice on performance. You still get really good performance. Essentially, it's laptop class performance. So this is 8 cores, 16 threads that you have available to you, and this is up to a 45 watt TDP. So it's a quite performant base part. Okay. So overall, very, very cool model. We'll have this in bare bone and non-bare bone configurations. So you should be seeing this show up next month. Okay. All right. All right. Let me just see if we had any quick questions right there. Hey, Drew Green, we actually do a number of giveaways. So I actually had 3 giveaways that we announced earlier in the stream. So you can actually check those out. And we also do work out a lot with different kinds of partners on different types of projects. So, you know, if you're part of our ASUS PCDIY group, you can actually see a lot of the different activations that we have going on. I usually post those as a featured announcement. Okay. So definitely check that out right there, boss. Tommy King, I already talked about this earlier in the stream. I'd recommend kind of going back. I talked about all the new upcoming PSUs that we have coming out, including our Tough Gaming ATX 3.0 base power supply and the updates for the Thor power supplies, Loki power supplies. I detailed them, all of that. But the Tough Gaming ATX 3.0 power supply right now is not projected until maybe the very end of this year or the beginning of next year in terms of its availability. Okay. All right. Last model that I have here, guys, in terms of the mini PC. And then I'm going to see, hopefully we've got enough time that I can do a little bit of the PCDIY Builder Spotlight. We might maybe only do one PC. Hopefully I can at least do Mike's computer, because I think he's still here with us on our stream. But we have the Mini PC. This is the PB62. So the PB62, it's more of our kind of professional business line. You're going to have, instead of a kind of plastic enclosure, this is a metal enclosure. Also the PB series steps up to a 65 watt TDP. So that's kind of like the highest level. That's actually entry level desktop TDP wattage for kind of CPUs. And the performance, of course, goes up because of that, because you have 65 watts, right, that you have available to you. So this is going to be kind of even a higher performant base version. 11th gen base 65 watts is actually really impressive in terms of its performance, especially for desktop based application usage. So here you're going to have, like I said, the metal chassis base design, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5, multi-display functionality up to 3 displays. We also have a mini PC that's like the PN, 53 on the Intel side, which is actually even using the newer 12th gen. So check out the PN63 or the PN64 if you want that more compact COM model, but keep in mind the power envelope goes down from 65 watts. So this PB62 is, again, 65 watts, right? You can get this model also in white or in black, as you see right here. And you can see a nice stack of just high-speed I/O right there, USB-C, 4 USB ports right there. You got your combo and your microphone that's right there. This is actually a new dust filter design, which is removable from the front to go ahead and help to go ahead and mitigate any type of dust from getting on the inside. Full metal, like I said, body, multiple displays out, as you can see right there, where you got triple display port. Then you have 3 more USB ports, and then high-speed based Ethernet that's going to be available to you there, and then the DCN along with the integrated SMA-based antenna connection that you have on that model right there, right? And here you can see 2 M.2 SSDs, 2.5 inch base drive, right? So a lot of flexibility in terms of storage. This is also fully supporting a PCI Express Gen 4 M.2 based SSDs. Actually, Intel offered this before even into AMD based platforms. It's only now with that new PN53 that now AMD is now offering PCI Express Gen 4 on their mini PCs, where Intel, we've now had this for 2 generations on both like PB models and PN based models. So a lot of flexibility right there. Here's the validation for all of the testing that we do. We do high temperature tests, low temperature tests, altitude, humidity, drop test, vibration testing. We're one of the only manufacturers that clearly actually communicates that for our mini PCs. Many companies don't even communicate that testing that they do for those models. We have certified power envelope configurations as well that we have here. And you have a lot of flexibility for how you can lay this out, where you can see you got VESA mounting support. You can put it on a vertical bracket right there. And again, you can get it in that white or you can get it in the black. And here's that little design that I talked about, the front mesh filter, where you can see you can easily just go ahead and remove that, clean it off, and then put it back on there. All right, so that is going to be the PB62. All right. JJ says, is it overclockable? No, these don't use overclock enabled chipsets. On the AMD models, you can do some performance tuning, so you can kind of customize power envelope if you use certain utilities. But because these units are very compact, they're not really designed for overclocking. They're kind of similar to laptops, right? Although we sometimes allow for performance tuning in some laptops, again, you don't really think about overclocking laptops. So you want to think about them in the same way that you think about a laptop, right? It's kind of a fixed power envelope, right? Hey Danny, I already talked about the ROG Loki and all of our power supplies a little bit earlier in the stream, so I'd recommend maybe going back and scrubbing through. But in terms of the availability for the Loki series, we've gone ahead and pushed out the overall timeline in terms of their availability, so they will be coming in at a later date. Right now, the earliest time frame that we're probably thinking for the Loki series is going to be very end of December, probably the early January timeframe. If you're part of our PCDIY group, you can watch out for a featured announcement post. As soon as we have it available, I'll be posting about it there. And that's going to be for the actual entire ROG Loki series. So it's not like one model will come out before another. Our initial targets will probably be first being the 1000 watt, probably 850 watt, and then last, maybe not last, but maybe similar to that timeline will also then be the 1200 watt. But at earliest, you're looking end of December, moving into January. All right, so that covers us there. All right, guys, so I've got a little bit of time. I'm going to go ahead and squeeze in one PCDIY Builder Spotlight. I think I've got mics here. I've got to go ahead and download it, so let me go ahead and do that. It took us a little bit longer to get through. I think we had a lot of questions from people, and, of course, just covering all the new products, right? So that took a little bit of time there. So if you guys are not familiar with the course, make sure to submit your system for our features in terms of our ASUS PCDIY Builder Spotlight. What we love doing in terms of, hopefully normally in the end of our streams, is we like to show off systems from our community of users, right? Where you can go ahead and submit your builds, whether it's a first time build, whether it's the 10th build that you've done, air-cooled, water-cooled, mini ITX to full ATX to eATX, I don't care. As long as it is essentially ASUS components, we'd love to show them off here on the stream. So feel free to go ahead and submit your system for a feature in our ASUS PCDIY Builder Spotlight. And I will go ahead and drop the link there in the chat if anybody is interested in doing it. You can also then be featured in terms of our social media channels as well. So that's the little form for you guys. You guys can check that out. But let me go ahead and bring up our system here. So give me 1 second here because I didn't have it ready. So I'm going to have to download the images here. Do it on the fly, guys. So let me go ahead and bring up the system here. And if anybody has any questions that I didn't get to, feel free to go ahead and drop them right now, and I'll do my best to go ahead and answer those before we wrap up the stream right here. So give me 1 second. I think this is it. Is this? Yeah, this is. Okay. Yep. All right, cool. I got a system right here. This is going to be from H2O Computers. This is a cool water-cooled build, of course, but that kind of makes sense, right? When we're talking about, I think when we're talking about H2O computers, that kind of goes with it. So let's see here. Oh, cool. We've got actually also a video here that they submitted. Oh, there's no name. No name. All right, so everybody, if you guys want to contribute a name, why don't you guys contribute a name for what you think this build should be called, okay? All right, I'm just downloading the images here, guys. All right, here we go. Got everything I needed here. So let's go ahead and get this started. Oh, wait. Is that right? Sorry. Okay, I think that's everything. I'm missing an image here. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look here at it. I think this is everything. Hold on. I will go back and check in a little bit here. See? Oh, all right. So let's see. First thing we've got here. All right, so we've got definitely a water-cooled build right here. We got a little bit of flow meter. We've got a little bit of that ROG cable tie. We've got an ROG board right there. I think already from the bottom of that board that probably looks like it's an ROG Crosshair or Maximus. I think this might be Crosshair based. All right, there we go. Ooh, I'm already liking this. This is pretty cool. So I'm not always the biggest fan of distros because sometimes I feel it always adds a little bit too much rigidity and kind of consistency to the lines that you're going to get. But, you know, they definitely have a really clean, uniform look. And this is really nicely done in terms of just the overall layout. It's nice, it's clean, it's precisely done. So it's a great job, I think, on H2O's computer's part right here. I like the color symmetry that already we're going with, where we've got black, we got silver, and I really like the approach with going white because then that creates a little bit of color blocking, gives us a little bit of contrast in the color scheme. The touch to go with the G-Skill Royal memory is also, I think, pretty cool. The Royals have that nice little bit of pop of kind of just boldness that they bring, which is cool. And of course, that little diffusion right there. And I also like the touch right here. Again, we didn't go with black fans, right? We went with white, and then we've got black, and then we've got silver. So we actually have a lot of color tones in here that are all complementary, but it shows you don't have to make everything match to actually have, I think, a cool aesthetic. And then it really kind of showing off the perspective of having the lighting come into play. When it comes into the overall kind of look and the feel right here with the purple. I really dig the purple. I think the purple looks fantastic here. Oh, so here we can actually see we've got all our core hardware. So yeah, I called it where I said it was a Crosshair board. So this is an ROG Crosshair 8. All right, Dark Hero Edition, so that means that was the last version that we released for X570 with dynamic OC switcher. It had that cool refined design aesthetic, although I personally actually like the design even more on the standard Crosshair or the Formula. But we've got a Thor power supply, 1200 watt. That's more than enough for everything. A 3090, and of course that got water cooled. We've then got a WD Black drive, Ryzen 9. So this was a serious upgrade overhaul that we had on this system right here. And then a lot of awesome EK hardware filling out the rest of the system configuration. So you can see right there, just all set up really, really nice. Here, right here, this is a cool little accessory. It looks like they added in the ROG wing wall. So this is our actually graphics card holder. And we do make this in different colors, but again, the black choice here, I think is actually cool. It gives us a little bit of the contrast. I love just the little subtle iconography that we have there on the wing wall design, which adds a really nice element. And I think these are the satin fittings, if Mike's there. I really like the way that came out. Looks really clean, nicely executed, and I like that softness that the satin finish brings to the overall look and feel for the system. And here we've got a shot going out, rounding out. This is a nice touch. I think, is this the drain? If Mike is there, can let me know. Is this the drain right here? If that's done, that's a nice touch. Just makes it really easy in terms of the drain. And of course, the integrated disto right up at the front. It's nice, clean, well presented, usable for the user in terms of just being able to go ahead and work with it. Yeah, so Mike is letting us know, yeah, that's the drain right there, which I love. So that makes it just really easy to be able to go ahead and dump everything out and be able to manage the system right there. And the cable routing is all on point. So this is a quality upgrade, really nice level of overall execution. And then right there, let's go ahead and round it out. A full look there at the side profile. Looks really, really good right there. So we can see nothing to complain about. I mean, this is just clean, well executed, great color scheme, nice use of the space right there. Really nice upgrade. You know, for the user, it looks good. It's going to perform great. It's going to be cool. It's going to be quiet. I really like the way that this turned out. It's a quality build through and through, right? So yeah, let's see. AMD Rise Enthusiast Group says, nicely done. Oh, from the one and only, high praise. Snef is giving you a looks great and very, very clean, right? I like this one right here, Into the Quantum Realm. Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. PGPCs also is giving us some love right here. It says, looks great. And Michael's also saying, loves the color. Yeah, I think it also looks great right there. So very, very cool. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. Call it Royal Purple. I like that. Royal Purple, that's a good name. I like that because the purple gives it that vibes, but you got a little bit of that satin kind of finish there with also the Royal G-Skill memories. It's a little bit of play on terms. I'm liking that. So you know what, Mike? I'm sorry. I'm going to change it. It's now officially going to be called Royal Purple. is now what it's going to be called. If you want to change it, let me know. But we're going to go with Royal Purple by H2O Computers. All right, let me go ahead and bring up the submission form right here, guys. Give me 1 second here. And just going to bring up the submission form so I can take a look through it right here. All right, and I think actually I might already have it up right here. Yep, okay. 1 second. Okay, you see right here. Okay, so there we go. And now submission form. Let's see here. I think it was the 3rd or 4th one. Oh no, I think 5th one. 5th one. Sorry guys. Again, didn't have this already pre-prepped, so that is the benefit of trying to do it live. All right, here we go. All right, so let's see, submission form that we've got right here. This is going to be from H2O Computers, of course, from Mike. Also, oh cool, I'm going to go ahead and actually pop over the little YouTube video because I think he's actually got a little bit of a build log. And I know that Mike's been working on branching out there, doing his thing there when it comes to trying to expand YouTube content. So if you guys want, make sure to go ahead and check that out. So we're going to go ahead and bring that up there in a second. Does the build have a theme? Extreme liquid cooled ASUS PC. 3 words to describe the build was powerful, sleek, and stunning. There was no name, but we're going to call it now Royal Purple. In terms of the core hardware that we've got right here, it's of course in an O11XL edition. We got the Lanley Infinity fans, right? The SL120s. That was a Crosshair Dark Hero board, 5950X. So they went with the fastest, of course, AM4. Although, you know, of course, if you're maybe purely gaming, 5800X3D. 64 gigs of RAM, 3600 MT, and then that ROG Strix 3090 OC that's on that water block right there. Thor 1200 watt, and then we got 2 terabyte SNN 750 and then 1 terabyte SN 750, and then pretty much I think all the water cooling hardware is from EK. It's about a $5,000 retrofit upgrade. What aspect of the build were they most proud of? Was the overall performance? Is there anything they would change about the build? Was adding in custom cables? I think custom cables could sure maybe add a little bit of a premium thing, maybe with some metal combs or something like that could be kind of cool. But I think that the cables, the cables that already come right here in the Thor are really individually sleeved, so they are upgraded compared to a traditional power supply. I think it looks fine, but sure, you could go to that little next level by going with a premium custom cable, right? The customer uses it for gaming. That's a high-end gaming system, especially for that CPU. That's an interesting choice there. Definitely, of course, you could pump up a little bit more, of course, a little bit more frequency by taking advantage of something like PBO, right? And curve optimization. His favorite ASUS function or feature is ASUS Armory Crate. I'm sure that be able to kind of easily just monitor the system and control all the lighting on there. But overall, man, great job, man. Love the way that turned out. Quality build. As always, we know that when it comes to you, we expect really, I think, clean execution, solid cable management, and a nice feel. Erica's giving us love right there that she actually likes the Royal Purple name. And then Jay's is giving it an awesome build. Two thumbs up. Oh, Andy K came in with Purple Rain. I'm a big fan of Prince, and I really like Purple Rain. I'm almost tempted to recall it Purple Rain, but I'm going to keep it with the Royals just because, you know, we got those Royal G-Skill memory in there. So I'm going to say we can leave it up to H2O Computers. They can name it. But I think, yes, I think David C. what says is, looks like a computer Prince would have if he was still alive. The only thing I'll say, right, is that if you look at some of Prince's stuff, Prince would usually maybe use more gold. So here we got silver, right? So I think maybe instead of the satin kind of silver finish, you would have ended up maybe going with maybe some gold in there, as far as maybe some gold fittings or something like that, right? But overall, pretty cool. All right, what temp are you getting when the CPU and the GPU raffing? I don't know. You would have to ask, H2O Computers, see what their thoughts are. But I would expect right here, you know, temperatures probably within this type of loop configuration. I'd probably say you'd be looking at maybe the mid 50s, probably for the GPU, for something along those lines, right? Oh, Michael comes in with Purple Rain Royale, right? That might be the one. That might be the one. I think that one's pretty good, right? All right, guys. let's go ahead and wrap up the stream for today. Thank you guys for joining us so much. Sorry I didn't have more of a PCDIY Builder Spotlight. Rest assured, when we come back for the next stream, we'll have definitely more PCDIY Builder Spotlight. I've got tons of builds to be able to actually get into, some absolutely stunning builds that have come up over the last few weeks, as we're now catching back up now on continuing with the ASUS PCDIY Builder Spotlight. So again, if you guys are interested in keeping in the loop with everything ASUS and just interested in PCDIY, make sure to check out the ASUS PCDIY group. It's linked in the description, and we'd love to have you there. With that, take care, take it easy, enjoy the rest of your day, have a great weekend. If you're building, if you're upgrading, best of luck with your builds. Stay safe, stay healthy.